All right. Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. It is currently 5:24 p.m. And of course, today's date is the 23rd of July 2025. A lot is going on. I was here yesterday. Um yeah, but I left early. And look, I'm back. Okay. We are back. A lot has been going on from the Epstein files to the Obama Tulsi Gabbard declassification of the Russia hoax. But a lot is still going on. A lot is still going on, ladies and gentlemen. A lot is going on. The president is currently speaking right now concerning artificial intelligence. We're going to check that out later on. But first, we're going to walk our way from the last place we stopped. Okay. We're going to walk our way up to the new information that we have today at this moment, right now. All right, we're going to start with, of course, the liberal news, CNN. Some people call them the fake news. I mean, who knows? But look, this is why we do this show. We show both parties. Look, like I always say, it is America first. Of course, everybody knows it is God Almighty, the greatest of all, first. But I'm saying when it comes to country, it is country first before party, okay? It is America first before you are a Republican or a Democrat, okay? Some people think it's being a Republican first or being a Democrat first. No, it is being an American first before you are a Republican or a Democrat. So, country first before your parties, okay? Now, with that being said, America has been blessed by God for sure. Everybody knows that. And that's why everybody wants to come to the United States from all parts of the world. Okay. Everybody tries to come to this land that has been blessed by God Almighty. And if you were born here or you find yourself here, consider yourself lucky and blessed that you are in the United States. But with that being said, it is your boy Genesis. You are currently tuned into the Genesis Show. Sit back, relax, enjoy yourself. Be nice in the comment section. Out here, we say what we think. We state our opinions in the chat, but we do it respectfully, okay? Whether you're liberal or conservative or independent, it doesn't matter. What matters is you love the United States, okay? With that being said, let's get straight to the show. So right here, uh, this CNN anchor is talking about newly discovered photos and videos, of course, concerning Epstein. So we're gonna go into it and we'll talk about it.
Out front tonight, the breaking news, a CNN exclusive tonight out front. K-File has unearthed photos of Jeffrey Epstein that we've never seen, and they shed new light on his relationship with President Trump. The revelations come as Trump is under fire from his own base for his Justice Department's handling of the so-called Epstein files. Trump has tried, of course, to distance himself from Epstein every which way. But one of the photos that K-File found confirms that Epstein actually attended Donald Trump's wedding to Marla Maples. And this is the proof. Again, this has never been published before. So this is a new image. You haven't seen it out there on X or anything like that. This is the proof that Epstein attended Trump's wedding at the Plaza Hotel in New York. And in the photo, what you see is Epstein entering the Plaza Hotel. The wedding date of this is December 20th, 1993, in the center of their friendship, which of course continued. And for comparison, we'll show you on the right a photo of Trump and Marla Maples at the same location under the entryway arch. Andrew Kaczynski of K-File is here with the new images of Trump and Epstein. And Andrew, I shared one of them there, but, so let's start with the one at Trump's wedding. I mean, this is a significant development.
Well, yeah, it is. Trump's wedding to Marla Maples in 1993 was dubbed the wedding of the century by the media at the time. And although
and that's why everybody was
Trump
there.
and Epstein were friends during this period, this is really the first time that it's actually been reported that Trump invited Epstein to his wedding. This is, we should note, more than a decade before those first allegations of sex trafficking against Epstein. But as you know, Trump's relationship with Epstein has been under the microscope recently. Now, besides that one photo of Epstein entering the reception at the Plaza Hotel, we can also see him in the background of another picture. That's Howard Stern on the far right, along with Robin Leach from Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. And Epstein is behind them at the wedding, almost seeming to be photobombing them. We also found this photo from just a few months earlier. Donald Trump with two of his children talking to Jeffrey Epstein. That's at the opening of the Harley-Davidson Cafe in New York in October 1993. You can see Ivana there. She would have been just about to turn 12 years old in that photo.
Yeah, you can see Ivanka right there it looks like between Trump and Epstein. All right, these are never before seen photos, Andrew. I know you also found some video of Trump and Epstein that was from later of them talking that has also never surfaced before. What's that?
Well, that's right. This is from 6 years later in 1999. This video has never been seen before in this context. It shows Trump talking to Jeffrey Epstein just before models hit the runway at the Victoria's Secret fashion show in New York in 1999. You know, the only other video we've seen of the two men was 7 years before this. Trump is at the show with Melania, who is, of course, now First Lady, seated a few feet away from Epstein. You can see them chatting during the show as well. Allegations that Epstein sexually abused underage girls didn't surface until 2005, years after this video was shot.
Right, but this, of course, establishes them together and obviously very friendly in 1999. So, Andrew, when you get all this, and all of this, as I just want to emphasize, right, has not been seen before. So you actually called President Trump. You called him directly to ask him about this.
Yeah, we were not on the phone very long. I think our call was about 30 seconds or so. But when I asked him about the wedding photo, he said, he sort of paused for a second and then said, "You've got to be kidding me," before calling CNN fake news and then hanging up on me. Now, in a statement to CNN, White House Communications Director Stephen Chung said this. He said these are nothing more than out of context frame grabs of innocuous videos and pictures of widely attended events to disgustingly infer something nefarious. The fact is that the president kicked him out of his club for being a, quote, creep.
All right. Well, it is incredible reporting, and it is important in this context as the country wants, answers on everything to do with Epstein. Andrew, thank you so much for all of that.
Exactly. Everybody attended the wedding. And of course, as you see there, the commander-in-chief, the 45th, now the 47th president of the United States, had his kids there with Epstein. So if he knew that Epstein did something that stupid, of course, I don't think he would, bring his younger daughter around Epstein. My opinion, I don't know, but that's what I would think. All right, here we go.
3 guests on this show who either knew Epstein or knew Trump have all used the exact same words to describe Trump and Epstein's relationship over the past week as we've been talking to them, and you've heard them. And they have done this totally unprompted. So here is a former Trump business executive, one of Epstein's former girlfriends, and an Epstein accuser who says she had a troubling incident with Trump. They all said the exact same thing here on Out Front.
They were best friends.
They were best friends.
Was his best friend.
Of course.
You heard them. And right there, Jack
Of
O'Donnell,
course.
Trump's former business associate, talking about what Epstein meant to Trump.
Okay,
These
here we go.
are people, right, who each met Epstein and Trump at different times, in different places, and just to state the obvious, in totally different capacities. And yet they all concur on this crucial thing. They say that when they knew them, Trump and Epstein were best friends. So in just a moment, I'm going to speak to Mark Epstein. He is the brother of Jeffrey Epstein, about all of this. Out front now, Mark Epstein, the brother of Jeffrey Epstein. And Mark, from what you know, from what you saw, how close was your brother to Donald Trump?
They were very close. They were good friends. Jeffrey used to sometimes tell me things that Donald said that were funny. I know Donald was in Jeff's office a lot back in the 90s. It's documented that Donald flew on Jeff's plane a number of times. I don't know if they ever checked, but I know Jeff flew on Donald's plane also. I don't know if they've ever looked at his flight logs. And they were good friends. I mean, I flew on Jeff's plane. It's known I was on the plane in 1999, flying up from Florida, and Donald was with us. You know, and we were all joking around. They were good friends.
So, tell me about that. I know there was something on that flight that you remember about your brother and Trump. What is it?
Well, it was a funny thing. We were talking, and well, stick a pin in that. A couple weeks or a week before that flight, I was talking to Jeffrey, and he told me that he was talking to Donald, and he asked Donald, "How come you sleep with so many married women?" And Donald's answer was, "Because it's so wrong." Now, amongst guys, it was a funny line. And then when we were on the plane a week or two later, Jeffrey asked Donald the same question. I know he did that for my benefit so that I could hear Donald say it. And Jeffrey asked him, "How come you sleep with so many married women?" And Donald said, "Because it's so wrong." Now, it's a funny line, but the answer is not the poignant part of the story here. The question is the poignant part, because for Jeffrey to ask him that question, number one, he would have to know that Donald slept with a lot of married women, so and he probably got that information from Donald. And
it
also,
implies a confidence.
That's not the kind of question you ask a casual acquaintance. How come you slept with so many married women? That's a question you ask a good friend that you can get away with asking those kind of questions. So it gives you an idea of how friendly they were.
Yes, it does. It certainly gives that perception happen. He has not shared what led to it. But here are some of the things that he has been willing to say about your brother. I want to play them for you.
I was not a fan of Jeffrey Epstein. I threw him out of a club. I didn't want anything to do with him. Jeffrey Epstein was not somebody that I respected.
That does not fit with what you're telling me, Mark.
Yeah, I understand it doesn't. But he's trying to cover his butt. I mean, look, I understand people trying to distance themselves from Jeffrey because of what he was charged with and the circumstances he found himself in. I understand that. But I know that they were good friends, and I witnessed it myself.
You mentioned something a moment ago that made me think of this, something that the White House told us yesterday. We talked to a woman who accused your brother of sexual assault, and she also talked about an encounter with Trump at your brother's office. This was in 1995. She found it disturbing. She said she told the FBI twice to look into people around your brother, including Trump. But she talked about this incident that she said happened in his office. And the White House, their response to us, Mark, they were categorical. They said, quote, "The president was never in Epstein's office." Is that true?
That's just another blatant lie, because he was there. The people that worked for Jeffrey in his office, you can find them. They can testify that they saw Trump in Jeffrey's office on numerous occasions. So for him to say he wasn't there, all I can say is that's just another lie.
So you talk about him as your brother, and you were on the plane together at that time. When did your brother first tell you that he was in legal trouble? When did you know anything about what he was doing?
It was about 2006 when he first got into trouble. It's known prior to Jeffrey's death. I hadn't seen him for 7 years, although we were always in touch, communication with telephone or emails, but we just never got together. And for the 12 years prior to that period of time, from like 2004 until 2008, we only got together maybe a half a dozen times or so, but we were always in contact. And in 2006, Jeffrey asked me to come up to his place uptown. He wanted to talk to me. So I was uptown, I stopped by. I'm not uptown all that much back then. I live downtown, and I sort of joke. I say to go above 14th Street, I need a visa. But so I went to talk to him, and that's when he told me that he was getting in trouble for being with girls that were too young. He said he was stupid, but he wanted me to hear it from him as opposed to hearing it on the news or something. And that's when I first found out, in 2006.
All right, and the reason that this is so important is trying to understand what the people around Epstein would have known, separate from what any of them might have also been doing, right? So I guess the question here then, Mark, is did you have any suspicions before Jeffrey's confession to you that he was involved with underage girls?
No, because I rarely saw him, so I didn't know what he was involved with. You know, we had different lives. He had his friends, and I had my friends. We traveled in two separate circles, in a sense. A few people we knew together, but, you know, he was more in the financial community uptown. I was more involved with the arts community downtown. So we had two separate lives, but we were brothers. We always stayed in touch. You know, but the thing is, Aaron, the thing with the charges against him, that's really not my concern at this point in time. Jeffrey is dead. So, I'm not the prosecutor. I'm not his defense attorney. I'm more concerned with the circumstances around what I now consider his murder.
Right. So
that's unsolved.
So I want to ask you that, okay, because the Department of Justice issued that memo earlier this month, right? It's at the core of a lot of this that reads in part, and I quote, Mark, after a thorough investigation, FBI investigators concluded that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide in his cell. Now, you say you were the one called to identify his body. You had conversations at that time, and you do not accept this finding.
No, I don't, because what they don't mention in the report, and no one says, is that, after Jeffrey died, the next day I had to go to, number one, to identify his body because I'm the next of kin. There's only heir. And they did the autopsy then. And Dr. Roman, who was the city pathologist, it was her autopsy. And Dr. Bondman was there on my behalf because I had the right to have, the family has the right to have their own pathologist there. And they did the autopsy, and they came out of the autopsy a couple hours later, and they both concurred that they could not call this a suicide because it looked too much like a homicide. They're very clear about that.
All right, Mark, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Even his brother is running
Tonight,
far away
Obama
from
fighting
him.
back, the former president calling out President Trump in a way that we have not seen before, slamming what he calls the, quote, bizarre and, quote, ridiculous allegations Trump made against him in the Oval Office just hours ago. So here's some of what Trump said.
The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up to 2020 of the election. They tried to rig the election. We found this isn't like evidence this is like proof, irrefutable proof that Obama was seditious, that Obama was trying to lead a coup.
All right, trying to lead a coup. Now, usually anyone associated with Obama just ignores all that. They don't respond. But that is not what happened this time. Obama's spokesperson responded in part, and I quote, out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response. But these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. Jamal Simmons is out front now, and the former Republican governor of Minnesota, Tim Pawlenty. All right, I appreciate both of you very much. So, Jamal, look, this is a change to come from Team Obama. It's a spokesperson, okay, but it's a change. And to come out and to speak like that, bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. Now, Trump said that Obama was trying to stage a coup, so that's what caused this. But what do you think, how significant of a departure is this for Obama to actually say, okay, we're going to respond?
Well, first of all, it's pretty rich that the man who was sort of affiliated with the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol is the one accusing people of trying to stage a coup. Obama, about a few days ago, came out and went after Democrats and said, it's time for Democrats to be, to speak up and to, not do so much navel gazing. He did that at a fundraiser. And so I think a lot of Democrats said, well, a lot of people are speaking up. They're marching, they're stepping up. And where are you at, President Obama? And so now I think we see President Obama stepping up too. And so he's stepping up and saying something to the American public. He refuses to sit back and allow Donald Trump to accuse him of leading a coup. And remember, it wasn't just what he said, Trump said in the Oval Office, President Trump said. He also released a video on his social media network showing Barack Obama being arrested in the Oval Office and carried out in handcuffs.
It was an AI-generated video, right? Yeah. And maybe that was part of what prompted the actual response here. It is a change, all right, and it's a change coming from the former president, so it matters in that respect. And Governor Pawlenty, Speaker Johnson is now saying that he would not be opposed to subpoenaing Obama to testify before Congress over these allegations. Here he is.
We have no concern about that. If it's uncomfortable for him, he shouldn't have been involved in overseeing this, which is what it appears to us has happened. There's a lot of allegations on the table. Our job is to go and follow each of those trails and to find out the truth.
Obviously, that's coming in the context of the changing of the topic going on in Washington, especially with Johnson away from Epstein. But Governor, I'm curious as to whether you think Obama now taking a sharper tone and stepping up as opposed to being quiet and trying to take the high road, is it too little too late, or does it matter for Democrats?
Well, of course, former governors, former presidents always try to be a little measured as to when and how they respond to their successors. President Obama has been pretty muted in that regard, with a few exceptions. But in this case, President Trump called him out directly, and President Obama answered the bell and swung back. Aaron, like you, I read the Mueller report. It basically concluded that the Russians did try to interfere with the election, but there was no actual proof of coordination in that regard. I'm not aware, nor have I seen any public reporting, that President Obama somehow ordered something inappropriate relative to that investigation. If Tulsi Gabbard or President Trump has that kind of evidence, then they should bring it forward. Otherwise, this seems like puffery.
All right. Well, absolutely. That, and certainly not helpful in the political climate we're in this country. But Jamal, Obama fighting back, and I hear the governor saying, look, this was specific, and something specific perhaps merited a response. And maybe we don't read into it an overall change. But there are so many in the Democratic Party saying, come on, where is the leadership? Who is going to be the standard bearer of that party? And someone who has certainly seems to be trying to take that on and testing different ways is Gavin Newsom from California, constantly going after Trump, after for a while tacking the other way to say, well, I'm going to talk to Bannon, I'm going to talk to all these people, I'm going to figure it out. But now he's posting things about Epstein and Trump, and he just said this about Trump and his immigration policies.
It's a weakness masquerading as strength. That's what I don't like about this son of a I don't. And forgive me, I know he's the president of the United States. Forgive me, I didn't, yeah, he calls me new scum. Come on.
So what do you think of that, Jamal?
Well, I think he's conflicted about how hard to go to use profanity. But listen, I think Gavin Newsom is the one Democrat I hear the most about from people who don't work in Washington and don't work in politics. And the reason why I think I hear about Gavin Newsom is because he's out there and really taking on Trump in a really forceful way. He'll go anywhere, Fox News or any other channel, and he'll do anything to kind of make his case. And I think a lot of Democrats are looking for somebody, it's not really about policy, but somebody who's got the attitudinal toughness who will take on Trump. We'll see how that works out. But what we have seen is in California, his poll numbers have gone up from 38% to about 56% because I think voters like to see him taking on Trump and not just sitting back and trying to find a middle road.
Do you think Gavin Newsom has it right, Governor?
I think Governor Newsom is an energetic and gifted communicator, but his policies suck. I mean, can you imagine him running in Pennsylvania and Ohio and Wisconsin and places that are going to decide the next presidential election? He's got a long history of ultra-left policies in California and in San Francisco, and I just don't see how that's going to sell nationally, notwithstanding his gifted oratory skills.
Gifted oratory skills, of which he has. I don't know if calling someone a son of a you-know-what might go in that category, but he does have those skills, whether you count that or not.
Aaron, are we in the policy era? I just don't know that we're in the policy era anymore with Donald Trump. I think we've moved to a different phase of the game, and I think this phase of the game, frankly, is not that nice.
No, well, that's
if you look at why Trump, Aaron, when you look at why Trump won the last election, besides his oversized personality, inflation, immigration, crime, wokeness run amok. Those are policies.
Right, that fed into the personality. All right, thank you both. I appreciate it, and see you both soon.
We here at the Arena just got a statement in from the former president's office, and we're going to read that to you. So they say this, quote, out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response. But these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. Nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. These findings were affirmed in a 2020 report by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee, led by then Chairman Marco Rubio. That comes from Patrick Rodenbush in President Obama's office. So, Kristen, I feel like I'm flashing back to when Trump was helicoptering to New Hampshire and Barack Obama was at the podium releasing his birth certificate, because it really does seem like we have been transported back to that time because President Trump doesn't want to talk about Jeffrey Epstein anymore. What is your latest reporting?
Yeah, that's true. And President Obama might want to get ready to continue to respond, because I am told that this is just the beginning of what Gabbard intends to release, that there are more documents more related to Russia. So this might be an ongoing theme. Now, President Trump, both publicly and behind the scenes, has been complaining about why exactly everyone wants to keep talking about Epstein. Just moments ago, he posted this on Truth Social. He said, "We had the greatest 6 months of any president in the history of our country, and all the fake news wants to talk about is the Jeffrey Epstein hoax." It has been obvious that President Trump wants to talk about literally anything but Jeffrey Epstein. He has pushed conspiracy theories. He has discussed various accomplishments in office. He has put videos on social media that have literally nothing to do with anything going on in the country currently. But nothing was more clear than when President Trump was asked specifically about this unsealing of the grand jury documents and the fact that the Department of Justice wanted to sit down with Maxwell. Take a listen.
Yeah, I don't know about it, but I think it's something that sounds appropriate to do, yeah.
Do you have any concern that your Deputy Attorney General, as your former attorney, would be conducting the interview, given...
No, I have no concern. The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up to 2020 and the election.
And Casey, one thing to note here, this has put the situation, this case, this investigation, and the memo from the Department of Justice has put the White House in a position it doesn't often find itself, which is on the defensive. Now, they had a brief moment where they felt like they were bringing the MAGA base together at the end of the week last week with that Wall Street Journal story, with the fact that they sued the Wall Street Journal. They saw the different members of the base coming to President Trump's defense, but it seems as though that is waning, because what we're hearing from these MAGA loyalists and from these Republican lawmakers is they want more information, and they want it quickly. One of the most interesting things I heard actually came from Armanu Raju up on the Hill, who was talking to Republican Senator Josh Hawley yesterday, who said his constituents are calling him and that they want more information about Jeffrey Epstein. So not going away anytime soon, Casey.
Today, President Trump declared his intent to, quote, go after people for what he claims were attempts to interfere in the 2016 election by claiming that Russia was seeking to influence the result. The president insisted that former President Obama was guilty of crimes for what Trump said was his role in weaponizing intelligence.
The leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? Look, he's guilty. It's not a question. I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason.
CNN's Kevin Liptak is at the White House for us. Kevin, it's notable this response came during a question about Ghislaine Maxwell, but can you fact check what the president is suggesting here?
Yeah, and just to underscore, these are very striking comments from the president. He's accusing Barack Obama of sedition. He said he was seditious. He's accusing him of treason. And he says, quote, whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Clearly, the president intent on using some of this information that was released last week by the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, to go after his political rivals, chiefly the former President Barack Obama. And just to step back and describe what Gabbard released, she released information that she says undercut that 2017 intelligence assessment that found that Russia, through a hacking and influence campaign, attempted to influence the result of the 2016 election. She seems to be relying on sort of correspondence that was sent between Obama officials that said that Obama wanted a new assessment into this. And what President Trump seems to be seizing on is the fact that an initial assessment found that Russia was not successful in influencing the results of that election. But both Trump and Gabbard seem to be twisting some of what the intelligence found. You know, the intelligence community found that Russia did attempt to influence votes through things like hacking emails, things like social media campaigns, but it never found that it actually hacked into voting systems and changed votes, even though it attempted to breach some of those systems. But President Trump seems to be using some of this new findings and documents that have been released by his intelligence chief to go very harshly after President Obama. And certainly it has always been true that the Russia investigation that really clouded the first 2 years of his first administration has long been in his head as an attempt to undermine his legitimacy. He has repeatedly called it the Russia hoax. Now the president seems more intent than ever on going after some of the people who he thinks were responsible for it. And just over the weekend, we saw him post quite a striking AI-generated video of President Obama in the Oval Office being arrested by FBI agents. Later, the video depicted Obama sitting in prison in an orange jumpsuit. So very striking imagery, very striking words from President Trump as he tries to use some of this information, one, to go after his rivals, but two, seemingly to try and distract from the Jeffrey Epstein matter. But I think bottom line, when he accuses Obama of treason, when he accused Obama of leading a coup and of being seditious, there's really no evidence in what Gabbard released last week that would back up any of those claims.
Yeah, certainly. Kevin Liptak, thank you so much, live for us from the White House.
I want to get a bit of a fact check of what Donald Trump just said at the White House from CNN senior reporter Daniel Dale, who joins us now. So President Trump made a lot of claims, Daniel, about former President Barack Obama. But what's the reality?
Well, President Trump has a long history of accusing former President Obama of committing crimes while not specifying how exactly those crimes were supposedly committed. So in this case, he kept saying Obama was caught, his name was on a document, didn't specify what Obama was caught doing, and did not say what document he was talking about. So it's a bit difficult to fact check, but I think there's a strong chance he's talking about something highlighted by a director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, that refers to an email post-election in 2016 where the member of the intelligence community said the president had directed the intelligence community to come up with a new assessment of how Russia had attempted to use tools to intervene in the 2016 election. So two things about that. First of all, that is post-election. That is pre-inauguration, but post-election. So it would not be an election rigging effort, as President Trump specified. And second of all, the president directing the intelligence community to assess Russian interference is simply not treason. There is very little there. Now, Tulsi Gabbard has alleged that that new assessment that was produced after that meeting, she said directly contradicted previous assessments. She did not prove that. And she is emphasizing the fact that that new assessment in January 2017 did not find that that previous assessments did not find that Russia had altered the election results, altered vote counts. Well, the new assessment didn't either. What the new assessment found was that Russia engaged in hacking operations targeting Democrats, had engaged in influence operations online to attempt to alter the results in favor of Trump to hurt Clinton. That is not contradictory as far as we know. And a GOP-led Senate Intelligence Committee review of this found that these conclusions were correct and that there had not been political interference by the Obama administration. So look, there continues to be analysis by this current administration of what happened back then. But what we have so far from Ms. Gabbard, from President Trump, simply does not come close to proving that President Obama committed any crimes here.
Okay, so in other news, Trump is accusing his predecessor of treason here. Just a moment of reminder, when Russia interfered in the 2016 election, as the intelligence community agreed quite broadly, there was bipartisan agreement that Russia did so. You had Republican and Democratic lawmakers saying quite clearly there's no question about Russian interference in the election. And just for folks who may not remember, They hacked emails from John Podesta, Hillary Clinton, and notably released those hacked emails right after the Access Hollywood tape came out. I mean, that's what part went into the assessment that this was attempted to advantage Trump. Intelligence community never found that they influenced votes or voting systems, et cetera. From a legal perspective here, is there any legal evidence grounding for a U.S. attorney to take up these referrals and actually prosecute?
Well, a U.S. attorney can take up whatever they want if it's handed to them, and frankly, they ought to. If they get a referral, there is not a serious case here for treason or sedition or whatever else. You know, Jim, from your long work overseas, that intelligence estimates or intelligence assessments are sometimes ambiguous. There are different opinions that can be made about them, but merely disagreeing with one or the findings of one or what's drawn from one is not treason, which is the act of, number one, seeking to overthrow a government, or number two, seeking to kill a sovereign of a nation. It's just silly. Now, can it be a hassle and a pain in the ass to the person who's investigated, who's got to hire a lawyer and go through all the motions? Sure, but this is not an investigation that would be grounded in any reality.
But when you have the president raising the prospect of using these levers, right? These legal levers of his administration. I mean, what is the risk in that? Just remind us.
No, you know what I think the risk is? It's public misinformation. I think people do not know what treason is or what sedition is or what any crime is. And they hear the words from someone in a profound position of authority who can get in people's heads and say, wait a second, I think those guys actually did try to commit acts of treason. So more than anything else, it's bad civics for the population that just doesn't understand these very hard legal questions.
There's that old saying that a prosecutor could indict a ham sandwich, right? If they go before a grand jury, essentially a one-sided affair.
Right.
Could you see at least reaching that relatively low level?
No, because yes, by Saul Wachtler, former New York Court of Appeals judge, that a grand jury could indict a ham sandwich. You still have to get to probable cause, which is that it is more likely than not that a crime was committed. It is not more likely than not that Barack Obama committed treason. You don't have to like the president, you don't need to have voted for him, but let's be serious here about what the claims are. So no one's getting charged here for this.
Elliot, thank you so much. A lot going on.
So CNN says, oh, Obama is not guilty, but Trump is definitely. Typical CNN, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go.
A short time ago, the DNI Tulsi Gabbard outlining claims of an alleged conspiracy by top Obama administration officials to manufacture the idea that Russia interfered in the 2016 presidential election, which is something that is just true and long held, that Russia did interfere in the 2016 presidential election.
Republicans and Democrats said so quite publicly at the time. Well, yesterday, President Trump said former President Obama was guilty, quote, of treasonous behavior. Today, DNI Gabbard did not go that far.
When you look at the intent behind creating a fake manufactured intelligence document that directly contradicts multiple assessments that were created by the intelligence community, the expressed intent and what followed afterward can only be described as a years-long coup and a treasonous conspiracy against the American people, our republic, and an attempt to undermine President Trump's administration.
Today, she said she was referring that question now to the Justice Department to decide if there was evidence of that, seeing as Jeff Zeleny is at the White House. So, Jeff, where does this go from here? And shall we expect the Justice Department to seriously consider criminal charges?
Well, look, it's difficult to rule anything out given the fact that here we are today near the end of July of 2025 talking about this intelligence report back from 2016. This is the latest example of this White House trying to deflect and distract from the questions that are that remain unanswered and are quite frustrating to many of the president's own supporters about the Jeffrey Epstein matter. But today at the White House briefing, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard right there, was talking about this report about the 2016 intelligence suggesting that Russia favored Donald Trump to win that election. But she misstated a couple of things in terms of one, simply she said that the variety of reports disagreed with this. But you'll remember the Republican report from the Senate, which Marco Rubio, then of course a Florida Republican senator, now the Secretary of State, one of the president's top advisors, he also concluded with that assessment at the time. So it was hardly a one-sided assessment. So what is happening now, the bottom line to all of this, is the president yesterday decided to suddenly try and change the subject after unsuccessfully trying to do so for several days, and that's where we are left here. So it's uncertain if the Attorney General will actually investigate if the former president, Barack Obama, was guilty of a treasonous behavior. The spokesperson for the former president yesterday called this bizarre and ridiculous. They normally don't comment on things that the Trump administration is saying or doing, but they said this was one example of where they thought they had to say that it simply is bizarre and ridiculous in their words. So look, the bottom line to all of this is the Justice Department certainly has enough on their plate with the questions about Jeffrey Epstein. It's unclear if they will also go ahead and investigate this. Never mind the fact that the statute of limitations also may have run, given that it's almost 1 decade since then.
Yeah, Jeff.
So Obama stuff was a decade ago. What about Jepstein? This vote.
Melanie, thank you so much. I want to bring in CNN senior law enforcement analyst and former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. We should also note, Andy, that the president was asked about Jeffrey Epstein the other day, and this is the direction he went. He immediately tried to talk about, the Russia hoax, as he calls it, Hillary Clinton. He's clearly trying to distract from the Epstein issue, which continues to dog him. We know that. So with that in mind, just taking a look at this, because it is important as he pushes and his administration pushes these kinds of things, to take a look at what Gabbard is saying here.
It's really, Brianna, it's really hard to.
Thank you. All right, let's go back to Jepstein.
You've got to be kidding me. That was President Trump's reaction and response when he spoke with CNN and was asked about these newly uncovered photos and video, offering a new look at his past ties to Jeffrey Epstein. We're going to show you some of them. A photo from 1993 showing Epstein at Trump's wedding to Marla Maples. Epstein's attendance at the wedding has not been widely known until now. Another photo, this one from 1993, also shows Trump with his children next to Jeffrey Epstein at a restaurant opening. And CNN's K-File also uncovered this video showing Trump and Epstein in 1999 at a Victoria's Secret fashion show. All of these, given the dates, taken long before Jeffrey Epstein was ever accused of sexual abuse. President Trump has never been accused of any wrongdoing linked to Jeffrey Epstein. Still, he continues and is taking distract and deflect to a new level. Today, lawmakers are going to be heading home for recess, and that is despite the last-minute push that has been coming from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle to force a release of more information regarding Jeffrey Epstein and the government's investigation. CNN's Lauren Fox is on Capitol Hill. Elena Treen is at the White House. Elena, what is the White House saying about this?
Yeah, well, in relation to this new exclusive reporting from Andrew Kaczynski and M. Steck, we do know that Andrew, and I spoke with him about this, called up President Donald Trump yesterday to walk through some of these photos that they had uncovered. Again, and you mentioned this, a lot of these photos and the footage of both Trump, then just a civilian, and Jeffrey Epstein were more than a decade before he began to face allegations, Jeffrey Epstein, of sex trafficking and abuse of minors. But I want to tell you what that phone call was like. So Andrew said that he called Donald Trump and the president told him, "You've got to be kidding me," before repeatedly referring to CNN as fake news and hanging up. So it was a very brief phone call. But then we also got this statement from White House Communications Director Stephen Chung that I'm going to read for you. He said, quote, "These are nothing more than out of context frame grabs of innocuous videos and pictures of widely attended events to disgustingly infer something nefarious. The fact is that the president kicked him out of his club for being a creep. There is nothing more than a continuation of the fake news stories concocted by the Democrats and the liberal media." Now, Kate, the relationship and the friendship between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein is well known. That has been documented. But I do think these photos and these new photos that both Andrew and Em have uncovered for CNN really do fill in the blanks of some more details of their relationship. You know, there hasn't been many videos of them together, but you can see in these photos that they were close. They were at that fashion show in 1993 where you could see, or excuse me, 1999, a Victoria's Secret fashion show. You can see them huddled together, chatting. They were also leaning over and talking to each other while they were seated for the show. Melania Trump, now of course the First Lady, was also there. And I think the reason that these are so important is because so many questions right now are about why the Trump administration is not doing what many of officials who are in the highest levels of the government here in this White House had been saying before they even took office, which was, you know, that they believed the Epstein files needed to be published, that there was more to be uncovered. And so many people are questioning now why that isn't happening and really criticizing the administration's handling of this. And even some of the president's fiercest supporters, people like Laura Loomer, who I talked to yesterday, they're saying that the actions that both this administration and specifically the Justice Department are taking to kind of, you know, try and quell some of the dissatisfaction over their handling of it isn't enough. So this isn't going away. We'll see whether or not we hear more from the president and the White House on this today. Kate.
Absolutely, Elena. Now, let me bring in Lauren Fox on this now, because the drumbeat is really coming from Capitol Hill.
No drumbeat is coming in. Obama needs to answer the questions, okay?
We're now
Leave
6
Jeb
months and
still
about
alone.
3 days into this Trump administration. The president is touting it as some of the most successful 6 months any president has ever seen. But what do the voters think about that and his job in general? CNN chief data analyst Harry Enton is here. So the president says things are great. What do the voters say?
No, I think is the answer. 6 months in, the rules of political gravity absolutely apply to Donald Trump, and the USS Donald Trump is taking on a lot of water. What are we talking about? Trump's net approval rating. Look, he started off back in January +6 points on the net approval rating, -3 in March, -7 in May, and now he's at a term too low at -11 points. His net approval rating has dropped nearly 20 points in the aggregate since the beginning of his presidency. The American people do not like what they're seeing, and Donald Trump's administration is in a ton of trouble at this point in the minds of the American voters.
Well, on what issues do the American voters seem to disapprove of him?
They disapprove of him on all of the issues. He's underwater on all the major issues of the day. Trump's net approval rating on all the major issues, -5 points on immigration, his best issue. He's underwater. How about the economy? That was what he was elected for. -14 points. How about foreign policy? -14 points. How about trade and those tariff wars? -15 points. And of course, the Epstein case, the lowest of the bunch, -37 points, 37 points below water. My goodness gracious. On every single issue, Donald Trump is below water on all the major ones. They're all dragging him down. No matter, it seems, what Donald Trump does, the American people do not like it. And that is why at this particular point, he's at a term too low.
It's interesting because this is the issue that may be on the top of many people's minds as members of Congress head home for this extended summer recess.
And it's his worst one.
I'm not sure that House members will be excited to see that number as they leave Washington today. So where does his overall approval rating stand compared to other presidents?
Okay, I do have one piece of good news for Donald Trump, and that there is one other presidency that has a lower net approval rating at this point than this one. The bad news is that it was Donald Trump's other presidency, his first presidency, net approval rating 6 months in. The worst was in 2017. Donald Trump was 16 points underwater. The second worst, however, is this Donald Trump presidency, 11 points underwater. The average president at this point since 1953 has a +27 net approval rating. John, do some quick math with me. It seems to me that Donald Trump is about 40 points lower than the average president at this particular point. He has the second worst net approval rating at this point. He is underwater on all the major issues of the day. The bottom line is 6 months into this administration, I think that most Americans would apply the word or words disaster, terrible, awful, horrible. I think that is the way that the American people would see it at this particular point. He is so far below underwater compared to the average president. The only one he beats out is him in term number one. And I don't think that's exactly the metric he wants to be applying to himself.
Interesting to see which direction it will go next. Harriet, and thank you. very much.
Thank you, my friend.
6 months since President Trump returned to office. He says it has been a massive success. What does the rest of the country think? My panel joins me now to discuss. Congressman Richie Torres, Democrat of New York. 6 months in, what do you think?
Well, the majority of Americans disapprove of Donald Trump. You know, he promised to end the war in Ukraine, and so far has failed. He promised to release the Epstein files, so far has failed. He said he would never touch Medicaid. He's cutting it by $1 trillion. And his economic policy has wreaked havoc on the U.S. economy. Since Donald Trump's inauguration, we've seen an 11% decline in the value of the dollar, the steepest decline in more than a half a century. And a 10 to 11% decline in the value of the dollar raises the cost of imported goods by 10%. So it's the equivalent of a $300 billion hidden Trump tax on American families and businesses. So it's been a disaster.
Former Republican Congresswoman Herrera Butler, I assume you disagree?
Well, I think that he's doing the things that they expected him to do. Whether or not they're feeling the impacts of that yet is what remains to be seen. Inflation went up last week from June, right? So these are things that are coming. Double-digit premium increases for healthcare I saw in several states next year. So people will feel it, but right now he took the chainsaw to things that they believe were broken anyway. I mean, the government's broken. This further Epstein, debacle is evidence that it's broken. So I think it's way too soon to say that they think they're unhappy with what he's doing. I think he's doing what they expected.
Let's go to the polling, if we could, in the control room there for number 2. The CNN poll shows that nearly 60% of Americans disapprove of his job as president, and he is losing ground on some key issues. 42% approve, 58% disapprove. And when it comes to key issues, disapprove 60% on the economy and 58% on immigration. I'm surprised to see numbers like that on the economy and immigration. Are you?
Very much so, but I'm not surprised in the sense that if you look in the first term, when they tried to pass the first tax package, it was very unpopular then, and you saw his numbers take a hit. But then you sort of fast forward 18 months later, you saw the result of that package, and his numbers improved significantly in the economy. I think it's still too early to tell. I think for his base, a lot of it will say mission accomplished, promise made, promise kept, and he's done that. DOGE, there's other factors. He's invested more in Ukraine, which is something that the base didn't want to do. But I think overall, the first 6 months, they've got to be very happy where they are, especially if they believe what took place in the first term. There was a lot of criticism with the tax package. I think it was less than 55% of people approved it, and it turned out to be the most popular thing that took place in his administration. They're banking on that same result.
I want to bring up the Epstein files because, Karen, you and I were talking offline about this, and to you, this is reminiscent of a different scandal.
And one actually you and I talked about when it happened. It is reminiscent of the scandal in the Catholic Church, because ultimately that was about an institution trying to protect itself over children who had been harmed. And we are again in a situation, it feels like, we're talking about girls who were trafficked, raped, assaulted, abused. So in this moment, the Trump administration has the opportunity to say, are you going to stand with the powerful, the men who were the clients, or are you going to protect these girls? And we've seen these young women. And so I think and I think for his base, that's part of what we were hearing this week, not just the promise made, this is a broken promise, but this sense of the powerful, once again, getting one over on who are more vulnerable. And I'll just say, in talking about this poll, part of what I think is interesting when we look towards 2026, so if they're not able to satisfy some portion of that base, I'm not saying they'll vote for Democrats, but they may not vote for Republicans. And then across the board on the issues we've just been talking about, and I would disagree with you that what the polls have been showing consistently for months, people don't like the way he's going about what he's doing. They may say he's doing what he said, but he's actually increased support for comprehensive immigration reform among Republicans. And when these DOGE cuts hit and when these Medicaid cuts hit, those impacts people, it's only going to increase the people who are going to be, I think, looking for someone else. But Democrats have to do the work to earn the trust back in 2026.
I mean, that's the key point. In this poll, they're talking about Democrats having the lowest
Right.
favorability since polls have been taken by CNN, 28%. So all that you say could be true if Democrats could find the leadership could find their backside with both hands. That's the one thing that's propping this up right now, is that they're not showing that leadership.
Yeah, and let's talk about that, because there's this Democrats' 2024 autopsy that is happening, and a New York Times story says that it is described as avoiding the likeliest cause of death, as it were. The audit, which the committee is calling an after-action review, is expected to avoid the questions of whether President Biden should have run for re-election in the first place, whether he should have exited the race earlier than he did, whether Kamala Harris was the right choice to replace him. Congressman Torres, isn't that a mistake? I mean, isn't what happened with Joe Biden, his abilities, the hiding of his abilities and all that, isn't that part of the reason that your party's approval ratings are so low?
Look, we should be open and honest about the failures that led to the 2024 debacle. An autopsy should address the actual cause of death. And I felt like if the Democratic nominee, including Vice President Harris, had had the benefit of a full primary process, she would have emerged from it from a better candidate. You know, a wise person once said, that which does not kill you makes you stronger. And I feel like we're all made better, stronger, and wiser by the rigors of a full primary process.
I think it was Nietzsche, and it was also the title.
It was Nietzsche, yes.
It was Nietzsche, and also the title of Bruce Willis's second album,
I would
also,
add,
by the way.
The thing is excluding those things, it goes back to the issue of the Democratic Party and why they don't have the people's trust right now. You know, it's a trust issue. They have no path to regain that trust. This autopsy could very much be that first step, but they say, trust us, but we're going to take the key components of why we lost out.
So actually in this story, there's three different things happening. There's the DNC one, there's two other efforts. But what I would agree with is, part of the reason we lost is we're not doing our job. We're not talking to voters. We're getting outmanned and outgunned in digital spaces. So I hope that those efforts come back and show us that, because one of the things many of us have said, you cannot show up 6 months before an election in certain communities and just expect we're just going to show up. Republicans spend off years spending money doing persuasion. We need to run a permanent campaign,
I
and
think
we're not doing it yet.
Focus on the issues of the American people. They've had enough. They don't trust institutions, covering up the whole Biden thing and not answering the question further.
What about the Epstein files? I mean, the slogan of the Trump administration is promises made, promises kept.
Do it.
He made a promise to release the files. He should keep it.
Okay. Thank you, one and all.
Typical CNN, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's go to Caroline Levitt, and of course Tulsi Gabbard.
Good afternoon, everybody. We have a special guest with us today who will speak momentarily. But first, I would like to begin with a message from the White House to the families of the victims in the brutal murder case in Idaho, who were sharing their heart-wrenching stories about their loved ones before the court today and addressing the evil killer who took 4 precious souls. We are so sorry for the grief and the pain you have experienced at the hands of such a vicious and evil killer. Our nation grieves with you, and we will never forget the precious souls who were lost in this horrific act of evil. If it were up to the president, he would have forced this monster to publicly explain why he chose to steal these innocent souls. May God bless and watch over everyone affected by this unimaginable tragedy, especially the parents who lost their children. Let me begin with a few scheduling items off the top. Later this afternoon, President Trump will deliver the keynote address at the Winning the AI Race Summit here in Washington, D.C. President Trump believes it is non-negotiable that the United States wins the AI race, which is why today, President Trump will announce a bold and comprehensive AI action plan to sustain and enhance America's global AI dominance. Under President Trump's leadership, our country will lead the world in AI to secure a brighter future for all Americans, massively grow our economy, and protect our national security. The president will also sign 3 executive orders at the event this afternoon. On Friday morning, President Trump will travel to Scotland for a working visit that will include a bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Starmer to refine the historic U.S.-UK trade deal. On the topic of trade, yesterday, President Trump accomplished something no other president has ever achieved. The president secured and announced 3 major trade deals with the Philippines, Indonesia, and Japan, all in one day. President Trump is finally putting a stop to our country getting ripped off. As a result of the president's successful negotiating tactics, many foreign markets are now being opened to American industries for the very first time, and harmful trade barriers are being broken down. Thanks to President Trump, these countries around the world are agreeing to open their markets to American-made products and goods for the first time, which will lead to a boom in sales and profits for American businesses right here at home. As President Trump said, he will only lower tariff rates if a country agrees to open their market to American-made products. If not, they will continue to face tariffs and pay a steep price to do business in the United States of America, which remains the best market on the face of the planet. Also this week, the president officially marked 6 months here at the White House. He made big promises to the American people on the campaign trail last year, and he has unquestionably delivered on those promises in record time. The president has defeated the Biden inflation crisis to make America affordable again. Core inflation is currently at its lowest level in 4 years, and prices for everyday goods are falling. The president's pro-growth policies have fueled massive job growth across our country. Since the president has taken office, our economy has added nearly 700,000 new jobs, with native-born American workers accounting for all job gains. The president has put the economic needs of families and of workers first. He signed the largest tax cuts for the middle class in American history, including no tax on tips, overtime, and Social Security. We have also seen the president unquestionably deliver on his promise to secure our southern border. He has ended Biden's illegal alien invasion, and for 2 months in a row, 0 illegal aliens were released into our country. The president has also, as you all know, initiated the largest mass deportation campaign in American history. The president has also restored law and order to make America safe again, another campaign promise he vowed to the American public. The United States of America is currently on track for its lowest murder rate on record, following this shift from the last administration to the Trump administration. The president has also ended Joe Biden's reckless war on American energy. U.S. oil and natural gas production are now surging, and summer gas prices reached their lowest level since 2021. The president has also rebuilt our military, another campaign promise. He just signed the largest military investment in decades to modernize our armed forces with cutting-edge technology to replenish our stockpiles and provide American troops with the best equipment in the world. The U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, and Space Force have all reached their recruitment goals months in advance. The president has restored America's standing on the world stage, brought back peace through strength, and brokered numerous peace agreements to end wars. Again, all of this in just 6 months. He obliterated Iran's nuclear program to end the war between Israel and Iran, got NATO members to raise their defense spending to 5% of GDP, and secured a ceasefire between India and Pakistan, as well as brokering a historic agreement between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The president has already received 3 different Nobel Peace Prize nominations for his peacemaking efforts. Again, all of this progress, all of these accomplishments have occurred in just 6 months. We are truly just getting started, and we look forward to working with all of you for the next 3.5 years. On another matter, over the past few days, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has unveiled shocking new evidence that former President Barack Obama and top aides in the Obama administration conspired to subvert President Trump's 2016 election victory and undermine the democratic will of the American people. While publicly pretending to engage in a peaceful transfer of power, in private, former President Obama went to great and nefarious lengths to try to sow discord among the public and sabotage his successor, President Trump. The new evidence released by the Director of National Intelligence, who is here with me today, confirms that the Obama administration manufactured politicized intelligence, which was later used as the justification for baseless smears against President Trump in an effort to try to delegitimize his victory before he even took the oath of office. The truth is that President Trump never had anything to do with Russia, and the Russia collusion hoax was a massive fraud perpetuated on the American people from the very beginning. And the worst part of this is Obama knew that truth, and so did all of the other corrupt officials involved in this scam, including former CIA Director John Brennan, former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, former FBI Director James Comey, former Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, and many others. Director of National Intelligence Gabbard's report further confirms what we already knew. There was no collusion, no corruption. except on the part of Barack Obama and the weaponized intelligence agencies at the time. The Russia hoax was a blatant lie, all ginned up by Democrat political operatives that were signed off on by then President Obama and leaked to the news media to launch a years-long witch hunt against President Trump and his first administration. Allies of the president, including his own son, Donald Trump Jr., were disgustingly smeared as Russian assets, and some even had their lives destroyed because of this vicious lie. The president's first 2 years in office had this fake distraction hanging over it, and endless resources, time, and political capital were spent having to debunk these lies from the highest levels of our government. Now, nearly 10 years later, thanks to the declassification of documents by Director Gabbard, the truth has finally come to light. And this truth vindicates President Trump, his family, and his many allies and associates who were smeared with defamatory lies. President Trump was right from the beginning about all of this, and we are grateful that justice can be served. Now, we have even more damning evidence implicating those who tried to sabotage a duly elected president and did grave material harm to our republic. Thanks to additional important work done by CIA Director Ratcliffe, Committee Chairman Rick Crawford over the past few months, a newly declassified 2020 report prepared by the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, which DNI Director Gabbard has declassified, found that the intel community did not have any direct information that Russian President Vladimir Putin wanted to help elect President Trump in 2016. And in fact, Russia was actively preparing for a Hillary Clinton victory. But at the unusual direction of Barack Obama at the time, the intel community published implausible intelligence suggesting otherwise. Why? To sabotage the incoming president. This is truly one of the greatest political scandals in American history. And reporters at legacy outlets, some of which are sitting in this room today, like the New York Times and the Washington Post, were ridiculously awarded Pulitzer Prizes for their perpetuation of this hoax. It's well past time for those awards to be stripped from the journalists who receive them. It is not journalism to propagate political disinformation in service of the Democrat Party and those in the intelligence community who hand over out of context and fake intelligence to push a false political narrative. I will now pass it over to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, to speak more about all of this, and then we will open it up for questions afterwards. Tulsi, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. At President Trump's direction and with the support and coordination with the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Rick Crawford, today we've released a declassified Oversight Majority Staff report that was produced in September of 2020. The stunning revelations that we are releasing today should be of concern to every American. This is not about Democrats or Republicans. This has to do with the integrity of our democratic republic and American voters having faith that the votes cast will count. There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't. The report that we released today shows in great detail how they carried this out. They manufactured findings from shoddy sources. They suppressed evidence and credible intelligence that disproved their false claims. They disobeyed traditional tradecraft intelligence community standards and withheld the truth from the American people. In doing so, they conspired to subvert the will of the American people who elected Donald Trump in that election in November of 2016. They worked with their partners in the media to promote this lie, ultimately to undermine the legitimacy of President Trump and launching what would be a years-long coup against him and his administration. We're here today because the American people deserve the truth, they deserve accountability, and they deserve justice. The records that we released on Friday that were ODNI records, Senator Chuck Grassley's release on Monday of what is known as the Clinton Annex, which was an appendix to the Department of Justice Office of Inspector General's 2018 report, as well as the House Intelligence Committee's majority oversight report that we're releasing today, all come back to and confirm the same report. There was a gross politicization and manipulation of intelligence by the Obama administration intended to delegitimize President Trump even before he was inaugurated, ultimately usurping the will of the American people. I'm going to go over the key findings from the House Intelligence Report, which investigated the claims that were made by an intelligence community assessment ordered by President Obama and published in January of 2017. First, Putin's principal interests relating to the 2016 election were to undermine faith in the U.S. democratic process, not show any preference of a certain candidate. In fact, this report shows Putin held back from leaking compromising material on Hillary Clinton prior to the election, instead planning to release it after the election to weaken what Moscow viewed as an inevitable Clinton presidency. In the January 2017 intelligence community assessment that President Obama ordered, John Brennan, who was CIA director at the time, and the intelligence community intentionally suppressed intelligence that showed Putin was saving the most damaging material that he had in his possession about Hillary Clinton until after her potential and likely victory. The report goes into great detail about the information that Russia and Putin had on Hillary Clinton, which included possible criminal acts like secret meetings with multiple named U.S. religious organizations in which State Department officials offered, in exchange for supporting Secretary Clinton's campaign for the presidency, significant increases in financing from the State Department. They also had documents that showed the patronage of the State Department to State Department employees who would go and support Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers. Then CIA Director Brennan and the intelligence community mischaracterized intelligence and relied on dubious substandard sources to create a contrived false narrative that Putin developed a quote-unquote clear preference for Trump. Brennan and the IC misled lawmakers by referencing the debunked Steele dossier to assess quote-unquote Russia's plans and intentions, falsely suggesting that this dossier had intelligence value when he knew that it was discredited. The intelligence community excluded significant intelligence and ignored or selectively quoted reliable intelligence that contradicted the intelligence community assessment's key findings on Putin's alleged support for Trump. Including this intelligence reporting would have exposed the ICA's claim as implausible, if not ridiculous. The intelligence community assessment omitted reliably sourced information, such as how some Russian intelligence officials were quote-unquote planning for candidate Hillary Clinton's victory, while others assessed neither Trump nor Clinton would respect Russia's interests. As was reflected in the DNI documents that we released on Friday, multiple intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election. On December 5th of 2016, the FBI and DNI gave the House Intelligence Committee its first post-election classified briefing, in which there was no mention of Putin aspiring to elect Trump by either agency. The Presidential Daily Brief, drafted on December 8th of 2016, stated that no Russian or criminal actors impacted vote counts. This document was pulled just hours before it was to be published due to quote-unquote new guidance. If it had been published, it would have been briefed to both President Obama and President-elect Donald Trump. On December 9th, 2016, a National Security Council meeting was called to gather President Obama's senior national security officials, which included CIA Director Brennan, then Obama DNI James Clapper, Susan Rice, and others. Following that secret meeting, DNI Clapper's assistant sent an email to the intelligence community with the subject line, POTUS tasking on Russia election meddling, tasking ODNI leaders to create a new assessment per the president's request. The House Intelligence Committee Oversight Report that we released today reveals that, quote, unlike routine intelligence community analysis, the intelligence community assessment was a high-profile product ordered by the president, President Obama. It directed senior intelligence community agency heads and, created an intelligence community assessment limited to just 5 analysts using one principal drafter. This is not something that occurs in the normal path of producing an intelligence community assessment that reflects the views across the intelligence community. The production of this intelligence community assessment was subject to unusual directives directly from the president and senior political appointees, especially the former director of the CIA, John Brennan. The House Intelligence Committee Oversight Report also shows how later that same day, on December 9th, Brennan ordered the publication of quote-unquote substandard reporting on Russian activities, which had previously been withheld from publication of prior assessments because the information was judged, quote, to have not met long-standing publication standards. Some of the information later used in the Obama-ordered assessment over the objections of veteran CIA officers was, quote-unquote, unclear or from unknown sources. The Intelligence Committee's oversight report reveals that CIA Director Brennan overruled senior CIA officers who challenged the Obama-ordered intelligence assessment, stating, quote, we don't have direct information that Putin wanted to get Trump elected. Yet, the Obama-directed assessment was published on January 6, 2017, which explicitly stated, quote, we assess Putin and the Russian government aspired to help President-elect Trump's election chances when possible by discrediting Secretary Clinton and publicly contrasting her unfavorably to him, end of quote. The CIA and FBI, then led by John Brennan and James Comey, expressed high confidence in this judgment, while the NSA expressed moderate confidence. Yet, as the report we released today shows, the ICA, the Intelligence Community Assessment, did not cite any report where Putin indicated helping Trump win was an objective. The opposite is true. With regards to the Steele dossier, we now know that one of the source documents that the Obama administration used in the creation of this intelligence assessment in January of 2017 was none other than the discredited, unverified Steele dossier. The House Intel report states, quote, contradicting public claims by then CIA Director Brennan that the dossier was not in any way incorporated into this intelligence assessment. The dossier was referenced in the intelligence assessment's main body text and further detailed in a 2-page assessment annex. John Brennan lied, and he denied using this dossier in this intelligence assessment that President Obama ordered because he knew it was discredited. It was a politically motivated, manufactured document. He directed senior CIA officials to use it anyway. CIA officer told the House Intelligence Committee staff as they investigated this, quote, the director of the CIA, John Brennan, refused to remove it, and when confronted with the dossier's many flaws, responded, quote, yes, but doesn't it ring true? Even the bipartisan Senate Select Committee on Intelligence report published in 2020 criticized the FBI's handling of the Steele dossier, noting its completely unverified nature and purposeful sidestepping of intelligence community procedures in its use. Now, President Obama, Hillary Clinton, John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey, and others, including their mouthpieces in the media, knowingly lied as they repeated the contrived narrative that was created in this January 2017 intelligence community assessment with high confidence as though it were fact. John Brennan, as CIA director, stated in a memo to his agency staff in December of 2016, saying, quote, there is strong consensus among us on the scope, nature, and intent of Russian interference in our presidential election. This was reported by NBC News, confirming that Brennan, along with James Clapper and James Comey, agreed with the CIA's assessment that Russia intervened to help Trump win the presidency. As Obama's Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper was tasked with overseeing the creation of this assessment in January of 2017 by President Obama, and he expressed confidence in its findings. In a 2018 interview with the Harvard Gazette, he talked about how he provided Trump with the same classified assessment that President Obama received, which included the high confidence judgment that Putin directly ordered the hacking and election interference. Clapper then went on to add, I think they, the Russians, actually influenced the outcome. This is a brief summary of the details that you'll find within the House Majority Staff's report in their investigation into the Obama-directed January 2017 Intelligence Community Assessment that leads us to the very same conclusion that we announced in the release of our documents on Friday. The implications of this are far-reaching and have to do with the integrity of our democratic republic. It has to do with an outgoing president taking action to manufacture intelligence to undermine and usurp the will of the American people in that election and launch what would be a years-long coup against the incoming President of the United States, Donald Trump. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tulsi. And we do want to take questions on this topic while the director has time for this topic. She will leave. I'm happy to take questions on other matters after that. But if anyone has questions for Director Gabbard, you're welcome to ask them. We'll start with our new media seat as always. Emily, go ahead.
Thank you. And Director Gabbard, this one is for you. Do you believe that any of this new information implicates former President Obama in criminal behavior?
We have referred and will continue to refer all of these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate the criminal implications of this.
For even former President Obama?
Correct. The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that fact.
Ed, go ahead.
Director Gabbard, thank you. So just two questions, but to begin on that. The president yesterday, you've inferred that the former president helped lead a coup. Based on what you now see, do you believe President Obama is guilty of treason?
I'm leaving the criminal charges to the Department of Justice. I am not an attorney, but as I've said previously, when you look at the intent behind creating a fake manufactured intelligence document that directly contradicts multiple assessments that were created by the intelligence community, the expressed intent and what followed afterward can only be described as a years-long coup and a treasonous conspiracy against the American people, our republic, and an attempt to undermine President Trump's administration.
The Senate Intelligence Committee spent several years looking into this and unanimously agreed in a bipartisan fashion, Secretary of State Rubio was a member of that committee, that there was no political interference. There was a years-long Justice Department investigation into this as well that also concluded no political interference. So help us, from a 50,000-foot level, explain, what do you now have that refutes those two conclusions?
I will encourage you, in my role as the Director of National Intelligence, my job, again, as I said when I came into this role, was to make sure that we are telling the truth to the American people and that we are ensuring that the intelligence community is not being politicized. So I'm not asking you to take my word for it. I'm asking you in the media to conduct honest journalism and the American people to see for yourself in the documents that we've released now, close to 200 pages, that point in multiple references, multiple examples, to include comments that have been made by senior intelligence professionals, who are some still working within these agencies today, that confirm the conclusions that we have drawn, that President Obama directed an intelligence community assessment to be created to further this contrived false narrative that ultimately led to a years-long coup to try to undermine President Trump's presidency.
And it's your belief that those two previous investigations missed that or covered it up?
I'm telling you to look at the evidence. Look at the evidence and you will know the truth.
John.
Thanks, Caroline. Thanks, Director Gabbard. You declassified these documents, if I'm not mistaken, Friday of last week, correct?
We released them on Friday of last week, the first tranche, yes.
This isn't the first time that President Trump has been president of the United States. He was president from 2017 to 2021. Couldn't the prior DNI under President Trump have declassified these documents? And why didn't that DNI do that at that time?
I can't speak to what happened there. There were several DNIs under the first Trump administration. President Trump faced many challenges from those who were working in the government who sought to undermine his presidency. That's been clearly detailed. What I can speak to is the fact that this was one of the first things that we started to investigate here within this Trump administration. and have released the results upon the conclusion of our investigation.
And then my second question has to do with what intelligence agencies around the world have said about Russia, that they have tried to influence elections in the United States, in France, in Germany, in the UK. Do you disagree with that? Do you believe that Russia is a bad actor as it relates to trying to influence elections?
I'll point back to the intelligence that President Trump has ordered declassified, that we have declassified and released, that the intelligence reflects Russia's motives were to try to sow discord and chaos within the U.S. election, which is a clear distinction from showing a preference for or against a specific candidate, which is what the Obama manufactured intelligence document alleges, that Russia preferred Donald Trump and tried to help Donald Trump get elected. Again, going back to the most important point here, with the intent to undermine the legitimacy of President Trump's election and therefore subvert the will of the American people who chose to send him to the White House.
Reagan.
Thanks, Caroline. Director Gabbard, Reagan Reese with the Daily Caller. You laid out that the documents revealed that the Obama administration did not publish a December 2016 presidential daily briefing that demonstrated that Russia did not steal the election. Trump was receiving these briefings at the time because he was president-elect. Are you of the view that that information was kept out of the briefing because then President-elect Donald Trump would have seen it?
I don't have any documents that speak to exactly what the new guidance was that was given as the reason for pulling that document, which, by the way, still has never been published until we released it last week, Friday. One could assume that they didn't want President Trump to see a document that came from the intelligence community that would contradict the Russia hoax narrative that began through the Hillary Clinton campaign with the Steele dossier.
One more, maybe either for you or Caroline. The president said yesterday that Obama committed treason. Do you or the White House believe that the Supreme Court's immunity decision protects Obama from prosecution?
Look, I can speak to the president's feelings on this matter. He spoke to all of you yesterday in the Oval Office, but I also spoke to him about this morning. And he wants to see all those who perpetuated this fraud against our country, who betrayed our country and the Constitution, to be thoroughly investigated and held accountable. And it's been 10 years of this. And I would just add, based on everything the director has said and declassified, all of you in this room should go through it and take a look at this report and review the intelligence, because unfortunately that hasn't happened. And many of the people who perpetuated this hoax, Clapper, Andy McCabe, James Comey, and many others, have been hired by major networks in this room to go on television and continue to spew these lies, knowing that they are lies. And if you all recall, just flashback to 2016 and the years after, the entire Trump 1 presidency was embroiled in this scandal that was perpetuated by the Democrat Party. And you had major Democrat Party officials in this city, namely Adam Schiff, Hillary Clinton, Elizabeth Warren, who went on television and told the American people Donald Trump is an asset of Russia. It was a lie. They always knew it. Hillary Clinton herself said that President Trump would be a puppet for Putin. Senator Tim Kaine at the time called President Trump Vladimir Putin's defense lawyer. Adam Schiff stated, and one of the worst things a lawmaker can do is to tell the American people, I know something you don't know, it's just classified and I can't tell you. And that's what he said. I can tell you that the case is more than that. I can't go into the particulars, but there is more than circumstantial evidence now. And not enough people in this room, not enough journalists in this country pushed Adam Schiff to say, what are you talking about? What evidence do you have? Everybody just ran with the lies, and it led to impeachments. It led to the division of our country. Unfortunately, so many Americans, from listening to outlets in this room, believed in these lies. And it's a complete scam, and it's a scandal, and the president wants to see accountability for that. Phil.
Thank you. A question for Director Gabbard. A spokesperson for former President Obama said in a statement earlier this week, quote, nothing in the documents issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. How do you respond to critics like former President Obama and also others on the Hill who say that the administration is conflating apples and oranges here, conflating allegations of actual hacking of voter machines and allegations of interference generally?
I think it's a disservice to the American people that former President Obama's office and others who are criticizing the transparency that is being delivered by releasing these documents. They are doing a disservice to the American people and trying to deflect away from their culpability in what is a historic scandal and negative action towards the American people and our democratic republic. The answer to that statement can very clearly be found throughout all of the documents that we have released. Again, showing that Russia has took action to try to sow discord in the election, but showed no preference for or against any singular candidate.
You've long been an opponent of weaponization in government. How do you respond to criticism that referring Obama administration officials and even potentially the former president is just more weaponization and this is a potential race to the bottom?
I think that's a very disrespectful attack on the American people who deserve the truth. They deserve to have faith and trust in the integrity of our democratic republic, which has been undermined by President Obama through his direction of this manufactured fake intelligence document, knowing that it was filled with lies and knowing that it would and could then be used for all of the actions that came after.
Carolyn, and I would just add, there needs to be accountability for that weaponization, Phil, that we've seen. And no one has been a victim of the weaponized government more than President Trump, not just because of this political scandal. You all recall his house was raided. So I think, it's very disingenuous for people to say, how dare they speak of former President Obama about this based on evidence and based on intelligence when the former president of the United States, Donald Trump's home was raided, when he was forced to sit in a Manhattan courtroom and many other courtrooms across the country for crimes he never committed, when he was impeached and indicted, and the entire country witnessed that. That's the weaponization of justice. Now the president is back because the American people see the truth. Nearly 80 million Americans reelected him back to this office, and he believes that we need to have justice and accountability. And I think the nearly 80 million Americans who reelected him agree with that. Caitlin.
Thank you, Caroline. Two questions for Director Gabbard just on this. Director Gabbard, you referenced the past intelligence reports and assessments on this, including that 2017 one that was signed off, as Ed noted, by every Republican on the Senate Intelligence Community, including the acting chair of the time, now Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who said in a statement that they did not find any evidence of Russian collusion, but they did find, however, is very troubling, and they found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling. One, are you saying that he's wrong in that statement that he made then? And secondly, what would you say to people who believe that you're only releasing these documents now to improve your standing with the president after he said that your intelligence assessments were wrong?
Well, first, I want to correct something that you stated, which was citing the Senate Intelligence Committee's report as being one and the same. I think you said the intelligence community. The Senate Intelligence Committee has a very different function than the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. The evidence and the intelligence that has been declassified and released is irrefutable. I'm going to let Caroline speak to Secretary Rubio.
I'll speak to both questions. First, on Secretary Rubio, he put out a statement in 2020 following that Senate Intelligence Committee report, and he said what they found is troubling. We found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling, which the Director of National Intelligence just confirmed for all of you, that Russia was trying to sow distrust and chaos. But what's the outrage in this that Secretary Rubio did not say at the time, the Democrats were saying at the time, is the fact that the intelligence community was concocting this narrative that the president colluded with the Russians, that the president's son was holding secret meetings with the Russians, all of these lies that were never true. And he also said at that time, we discovered deeply troubling actions taken by the FBI under Comey, particularly their acceptance and willingness to rely on the Steele dossier without verifying its methodology or sourcing. The Steele dossier that many outlets in this room ran as the gospel truth, and it was cooked up and paid for by the Clinton campaign. As for your second question, Caitlin, I think who is saying that she would release this to try to boost her standing with the president? Who has said that?
Well, the president has publicly undermined her when it came to Iran. He said she was wrong. He told me that she didn't know what she was talking about. That was on Air Force One, on camera.
The only people who are suggesting that the Director of National Intelligence would release evidence to try to boost her standing with the president are the people in this room who constantly try to sow distrust and chaos amongst the president's cabinet, and it is not working. I will just answer your question directly. I am with the President of the United States every day. He has the utmost confidence in Director Gabbard. He always has. He continues to, and that is true of his entire cabinet, who is all working as one team to deliver on the promises this president made. Does anyone else have questions for Director Gabbard? And then we'll turn it over to a couple other questions. Christian, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Director Gabbard, 2 follow-ups on questions that have been asked. You mentioned the previous DNIs during the president's first term. One of them reports to you right now, if I'm not mistaken, John Ratcliffe. So have you not spoken to him about why this information was not declassified during the first term?
He was in that position for a very short period of time. The work that began back then, we have picked up and absolutely completed. We are continuing to investigate this. Additional whistleblowers are now coming forward because they see an opportunity for the truth to come to light. And as Caroline said, for real accountability to be brought forward. The accountability is the essential part of this. We can show the truth, reveal the truth. The accountability needs to occur to be able to start to restore that trust in the integrity of our democracy.
And then just quickly, I know you said you would leave the charging to DOJ, but the statute of limitations on conspiracy is 5 years. So what else could they possibly pursue besides treason?
I think that's a great question for Attorney General Pam Bondi. We're providing all of the evidence, all of the intelligence that we have, both redacted and unredacted versions, referring it to the Department of Justice and the FBI.
We'll take one more. Charlie, go ahead.
How credible was the information about Hillary Clinton's health? The report said that it was from sourced from the DNC. Have you seen that information? Or do you think that maybe Russia was overemphasizing what they had?
All I have seen is what the Intelligence Committee have reported through their investigation. I think the underlying point there is that we understand from intelligence what Russia said that they had. And the important point here is that if they were trying to influence the election, as President Obama and James Clapper and John Brennan, everybody said they were doing in order to support Donald Trump's election, they would have released the most damning of that information, some of which I detailed here. You'll find the rest in the report, prior to the election to help Donald Trump win. They specifically withheld what they had on her, the most damning information, because they thought that she would win the election. They had plans to release it just prior to her inauguration to, again, sow discord and chaos in America.
And if I may, on Jeffrey Epstein, can you rule out that he was connected in some way to any kind of intelligence, either foreign or domestic?
I haven't seen any evidence or information that reflects that. If anything comes before me that changes that in any way, support the president's statement loud and clear. If any credible evidence comes forward, he wants the American people to see it.
Great. Director Gabbard, we thank you for your time today. I know you're a busy woman, so we'll let you get out of here, but thank you so much. Okay. I know there's many issues going on today across the world and here at home. If you have any other further questions, I'm happy to take them. Ed, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. So the Japan trade deal, is that Japan trade deal the start of this number of trade deals that the Treasury Secretary says we're going to see by August 1st?
I think it is. I mean, as you said, we had Japan yesterday. We also had Indonesia, and we had the Philippines as well. The president announcing all three. He came in as the closer in all three of those. I've said many times from this podium that the president's trade team has been in active talks and discussions with many countries around the world, and you've all been anxiously awaiting what those countries were. Now you know three of them, and there's many, many more to go. We have now sent 25 letters to countries around the world. But just to reiterate this Japan deal, for those at home who may have missed it, Japan will now pay a 15% tariff versus the reciprocal rate of 24% that they initially had. Auto and auto parts tariffs have been reduced to 15%, but the centerpiece of this deal now is the president got Japan to commit to $550 billion in investments to revitalize American industries. And these funds will be spent at President Trump's discretion and direction into key industries such as energy, semiconductors, critical minerals, pharmaceuticals, and shipbuilding. And the U.S. will retain paying 90% of the profits from any investments made by this $550 billion fund. This was originally a $400 billion investment that President Trump then negotiated to an increase of $150 billion, making it a $550 billion deal for the American people. And I just want to emphasize, Ed, I see you have a follow-up, but it's very important. Japan has agreed to open their markets to many very key sectors in American-made products that have really faced very strict tariff and non-tariff barriers prior. So thanks to the president, Japan's markets will now be open to American-made products and goods. This is big news for our tech companies and our farmers as well.
On Monday, the Treasury Secretary is going to Stockholm to talk to the Chinese delegation. What does the president hope to get out of that meeting? Are there deliverables?
I won't speak to any deliverables or set expectations. I'll let the Secretary of Treasury do that. But I did speak to him yesterday about his upcoming trip, and he looks forward to continuing discussions with his Chinese counterparts. The president has ensured that we have a good continuing working relationship with China that benefits the United States. And so the Secretary of Treasury will be obviously discussing those key matters, but I'll let him set the expectations.
One more, if I may.
Sure.
Given what the DNI just said and laid out, does President Trump believe that President Obama should go to jail for something?
Look, the president believes that this matter needs to be thoroughly investigated, and anyone convicted of crime should be held accountable in this country. Go ahead.
Special Envoy Wickoff is headed overseas again.
Good to see you, Olivia. I haven't seen you since the campaign trail.
It's good to see you. He's headed back overseas. Can you give us a sense of what the marching orders are to some of the people he'll be meeting with, and specifically as it relates to Gaza and ongoing talks there?
Yes, Special Envoy Wickoff is headed to Europe, where he will meet with key leaders from the Middle East to discuss the ongoing ceasefire proposal to end this conflict in Gaza and to release the hostages. These are very sensitive negotiations that are currently taking place. I spoke to Special Envoy Wickoff last night about them. I will let him speak further on the matter, but the President and Special Envoy Wickoff has made the administration's goals clear. We want this ceasefire to happen as soon as possible, and we want these hostages to be released. Go ahead.
Carolyn, a Florida federal judge has refused to allow the Epstein grand jury materials to be released. Does the president want the administration or Department of Justice to appeal that ruling?
That was just breaking as the director and I were coming out here, so I haven't had a chance to talk to the president about it. I understand there are 2 other requests from the Department of Justice that are ongoing, but I'll let this president speak to whether he wants to see an appeal. And the Department of Justice, I'm sure, can give you a statement on that as well.
And is he supportive of the effort to talk to Ghislaine Maxwell? I know that Todd Blanchard mentioned that earlier this week.
The president spoke to this yesterday, and he said he thinks it's an appropriate idea. Kelly.
What is the accountability that you would like to see if this current president is the one who brought the case to the Supreme Court and Chief Justice Roberts made clear in his opinion that a sitting president's responsibilities in office cannot lead to prosecution, immunity? So what is it the President Trump wants regarding President Obama, given that fact? And the special counsel at the time, Durham, when that Supreme Court matter was not in effect, could have charged anyone and did not. So on those 2 points, how do you respond?
Look, the president has made it clear that he wanted these documents to be declassified. He wanted the American people to see the truth, and now he wants those who perpetuated these lies and this scandal to be held accountable. As for what accountability looks like, as the director said, it's in the Department of Justice's hands, and we trust them to move this ball forward.
But you would agree President Obama cannot be charged based on that immunity?
Again, I'll leave that to the Department of Justice. Stephanie.
In light of the Japan deal, are sectoral tariffs now up for negotiation with trading partners? And in a similar note, are these negotiators asking for investment funds, sort of like what Japan had agreed to?
As for sectoral tariffs, I understand that the president continues to be in talks with our Secretary of Commerce. We have made commitments on various sectoral tariffs, as you know. The Department of Commerce has initiated studies to then move forward with implementing those sectoral tariffs. So I would defer you to them for further comment. Meredith.
I wanted to ask if the White House has any update on the Commerce Department employee who's been detained or banned from exiting China, and if there are any efforts to get him out.
I can assure you and the American people that the administration is actively monitoring the situation and engaged, but typically we don't comment on individual cases like this as we are sorting them out. Sure.
Yes.
Behind you, Dr. Harper, sorry. Go ahead, to the To the lady sitting down in the blue, yes.
Thanks,
What's your name? What's your name?
My name is Caroline also. Caroline Boda with the Center Square.
Great.
So Republicans in the Senate today said that they are pulling back on legislation to impose sanctions on Russia after the president said he wants to act unilaterally. Can you elaborate on what the president intends to do?
Look, the president has been in very close communication with his friends in the Senate, particularly Senator Lindsey Graham, on this issue. But the president has always maintained, he's the commander-in-chief and the president for a reason, and he has been deeply involved in this conflict since the beginning. And so any decisions that are made with respect to sanctions, the president wants to reserve that authority and that right to himself. Jasmine.
Thanks, Caroline. Two questions for you. The first on AI. Does President Trump support federal agencies contracting with Elon Musk's AI company?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, so he would want the DOJ to then cancel the contract with Musk.
I'll talk to him about it, yes.
And my second question, just, obviously the developments with the Epstein case with the judge, but I wonder, has the White House counsel, the DOJ explored any other documents that could be released to the public that don't have to do with that grand jury testimony?
To my knowledge, the Department of Justice has moved forward with the request to unseal that grand jury testimony, and as you know, they have also moved forward with interviewing Ms. Maxwell, which I believe will be taking place very soon. Go ahead. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. I have a question about Paul Ingrassia, the OSC nominee who faces a Senate committee hearing tomorrow. Tom Tillis said that he wouldn't vote for Ingrassia if a vote came to the Senate floor. 24 worker advocacy groups have said that they don't support his nomination. What is the White House planning to do to sort of turn the tide or convince legislators that they should vote for him?
The White House is always in communication with members of both the Senate and the House, and we stand by the president's nominees. Sure.
In connection with the Mueller investigation, a grand jury indicted 13 Russians. President Putin has said he will never extradite those men. Given the new information that Ms. Gabbard has found, what's the administration's position on that case? Should those charges be dropped?
I don't have an update for you on that case, but I'll check in with the National Security Council, and our team will get you something. Sure.
Thank you so much. So Fannie Willis and Jack Smith separately, they both charged President Trump with conspiracy to defraud the United States and a conspiracy to overturn the 2020 election. It now turns out we're confirming that Obama and his cronies were doing that the whole time in 2016 on a massive scale, falsifying documents and having their intel agencies do this. What does this say about the 2020 election? And also, what's your thoughts on the irony here?
There is a lot of irony, especially for the party of the Democrat Party, who claims to be for democracy. We often heard throughout the 2024 campaign they were calling this president a threat to democracy. And now I think the declassification of all of these documents proves that they were indeed the true threat to democracy. And as I said repeatedly today, there needs to be justice and accountability for that. You all will hear directly from the president later this afternoon at the AI Summit here in Washington, D.C., scheduled to speak later in a few hours. So we will see you all there. Thank you very much.
Caroline Levitt. Here we go.
In other words, we had a majority of one. Then we took a few good victories with some little elections that took place. A couple of other things happened, and we ended up with 7. But we had one, and the speaker said to me,
All right, so this happened yesterday. This was concerning the Japan trade deal. Here we go.
A celebration in front of a lot of our good friends, and we've been celebrating in a certain way every night at about 4 in the morning when I had to call you and say, you gotta vote for us. The speaker would call and it'd say, please, please get him to vote. I said, it's 4 in the morning. And everybody took the call, and just about everybody voted. And it's an amazing thing. So amazing that I just signed, and it was really helped a lot by our big, beautiful deal that we just did, the big, beautiful bill, as we call it. But I just signed the largest trade deal. And that was done with Japan. They had their top people here, and We worked on it long and hard, and it's a great deal for everybody. I always say it has to be great for everybody. It's a great deal. A lot different from the deals in the past, I can tell you that. But we're doing really well as a country. We're strong. We have a lot of money flowing in. The tariffs are kicked in better than anybody other than me and a few of the people in the room thought could happen, Howard and Scott. And I just want to thank you. You've been unbelievable allies, because you're really allies. That's what you've been, and we appreciate it. Some were very difficult, but you got there. And some were a little bit, they had a little confidence, and they came in earlier. We just appreciate everybody. But we're gathered tonight to celebrate 6 months of incredible achievements by one of the most successful House majorities in American history. That's what it's about. All right? Despite having an incredibly narrow margin, and you know that, we had actually one period, Speaker, where we had one. In other words, had a majority of one. Then we took a few good victories with some little elections that took place. A couple of other things happened, and we ended up with 7. But we had one, and the Speaker said to me, you know, we're one heart attack away from losing the majority. We don't want to be there, and I think the results of what we're doing together will give us a tremendous midterm. We're going to work together very hard. We're going to make all those robocalls for you, and we're going to pick it up, and we're going to really we're going to increase. I think we should increase by a lot. But despite this incredibly narrow margin that you've already fulfilled, think of this: more promises than any Congress in generations. There's been no Congress, and we've had some even where we were up quite a bit, but there's been no Congress like this Congress in terms of achievement that people can even think of. Now, we have to take world wars out. We can take a couple of things out, but basically there's never been anything like this. And we did this with very small majorities. And I want to thank John Thune also, because the Senate has been, and all of the people in the Senate, because they've been terrific also, working with Mike and everybody. But I especially tonight want to thank Speaker Johnson for doing a job that I think you could have done. I think he'll go down, and I think he's got a long way to go. He's going to go down as one of the greatest speakers at any time in history. And you know, and I say this, you needed a very precise personality to get these voters. If you had somebody that was just a little bit off, you were going to lose 20 votes. Then you couldn't lose any. So I just want to thank you. Everybody believes that too, Mike. Thank you very much. Great job. And Kelly is here. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Kelly. Also, a man of great courage, Steve Scalise. He's our majority leader. No, I've told the story so many times, but he was very brave. I saw him in the worst of times. I was there at his hospital late at night with his incredible wife, and we thought Steve was not with us. He was going to be a goner, and he was tough. And I actually think you look better now than you did then. If you want to, you look better now than you did before this horrible thing happened. So whatever the hell you're doing, you're going to have to let us know, all right? But he's great. And another guy who I've really gotten to like, and usually this doesn't happen because I used to have little arguments. I said, boy, he's a tough guy. He's a nasty, tough guy. And then I realized how talented he was, how good he was. And we got to be, I think, really good friends. Tom Emmer, he's incredible, actually. But his wife, oh, there she is. But she liked me, and she said, you know, you don't understand my husband. He's really, and she turned out to be right. His greatest asset. Thank you both for me. That's so nice. Thank you. This is incredible. And every other member of Congress that's with us. We have almost pretty much a full contingent. Some of you have your spouses, and we appreciate, and that's why we appreciate what you've had to go through. These were late nights, and a lot of them, too. We had a lot of them. We had, if we turned off the phones at 3:30 in the morning, we weren't working very hard. It was really something. So I just want to thank you all. And we also have Secretary Scott Bessent. Is Scott here someplace? I think so. Scott, thank you very much, Scott. And we just came in from the Oval Office where a few people got to watch the negotiation with Japan. It was interesting. Doug Burgum, I think, might be here someplace. Doug, hi, bud, Doug. And I said to the Japanese trade representatives, and these were the top people, we concluded the one deal, Doug, and now we're going to conclude another one because they're forming a joint venture with us in Alaska, as you know, for the LNG. So I said, we'll all do that together with Chris. Is Chris here? I don't know. Chris, right? If you could set that up, Doug, it would be great. But they're all set to make that deal now, so I think it's good. This was really the one they had to make, and we're going to make a deal with Japan on the LNG in Alaska, right? Okay, thank you very much. And Howard Lutnick, who was terrific. He was terrific, Howard. He'll never go back into private industry again because he's seen numbers that are so big. This deal is, they say, the biggest deal ever made, And we have Europe coming in tomorrow and the next day. We have some other ones coming in. We're doing things that have never been done in this country before, and our country is becoming very rich again, and that's the way it should be. They're not taking advantage of us, and it's very good. But Howard will never go back into private. You know, he had a big company, but the biggest deal you've ever made is like a quarter of a line of the deal we just left, right? So it's a little tough. Scott Turner is here. It's terrific, Scott. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Scott. Good job. Good job, Scott. Thank you very much. In fact, Scott, come here. Come here. I'm going to have Scott say grace. Give a little prayer, yes? I hope the television stays on. You know, they have a tendency to turn off, but I think that's good. What do you think, Brian? Yes? Come on, Scott. And nobody does it like this man. He's better at this than he is at housing, but he's good at housing. That's great, Scott. Thank you, man.
How are you, sir?
I'm good.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Mr. President. We're so grateful for you. Grateful for your sacrifice and for your heart for people, your heart for this country, your heart to do what's right no matter what.
Thank you, Scott.
And I'm so grateful that the Lord called us to be together for such a time as this. And so I really appreciate you. And I know I can speak for everyone out here that you are a tremendous leader. And we thank God for you. And we thank God for the First Lady.
Thank you.
And your family and everything that you've gone through for this country. And we're proud to stand with you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you. We're so grateful that we have this time to stand in your presence. Father God, we are at the White House. Father God, the most powerful place in the land. And Father, we thank you that President Trump allows us to take this time and go before the throne of heaven and give you reverence. You are the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and Jesus, we thank you. We thank you that you love us so much. God, we thank you for this awesome privilege to serve the people of the United States of America. Father, the Bible says, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. And Father, we put you on your rightful place tonight on the thrones of our heart. And Father God, on the throne of this country. Father God, we humble ourselves before you tonight, and we thank you for your goodness, for your mercy, for your grace. Father, we pray for those precious people in Central Texas, Father God, that have lost loved ones, who have lost children, who have lost family members. Thank you, God, for those on the ground who are working hard to, Father God, to help those to be recovered and rescued and restored. And Father, we pray in the days ahead, it's going to get real dark, but Father, we know that you're a light in the midst of darkness. Lord, thank you for the people of Texas, that they are so resilient. And God, we thank you that you are so faithful in the midst of the storm. Now, Father, tonight we thank you for every congressional member, their staff, their families, their spouses. Lord, thank you for giving us favor to pass this one big, beautiful bill and what it does for the people of this great country, not just for now, but for the posterity of our nation. And Lord, tonight may you be glorified in our time together. And Lord, I pray that you will bless our president. God, everything he puts his hands to, we pray you will bless it. Strengthen him. Father, give him wisdom like never before. Open his eyes to see like he's never seen, and his ears to hear your sweet, small voice in the midnight hour. Lord, let him know that it is well with his soul. In Jesus' name, amen.
Rob looking like a proud father. I told y'all this guy was good with this stuff.
Beautiful. Thank you, Scott. That's beautiful. Thank you very much. So nice. So we also want to thank Linda McMahon, who's right now, where are you, Linda? She's out negotiating with a lot of different people. What a great cabinet member in person, and she's working on bringing education back to the states where it belongs, and lots of other things like how come Harvard got $5 billion in the last year and a half or 2 years? $5 billion they got. Linda said, you know, you're not going to be happy. What? Harvard's getting billions and billions of dollars, and they're not spending it nicely, and they're very discriminatory and lots of other things. And she's got a tough judge. She's got a judge that would typically not be with us, but I don't want to say that because you never know what happens. But we'll win that case ultimately. We're going to win it. No decision made yet, but she's in the middle of a lot of things. But Linda, you have been unbelievable. Thank you very much. Great job you've done. And I said hello to Chris Wright. Chris is the most talented person. Doug actually said that I offered Doug Department of Energy notice. He said, I have somebody better. He's never said that in his whole life about anybody, Mary. He's never said that about anybody, but he said Chris Wright is so incredible, and he has turned. He's the #1 guy in the oil industry, and he left for, I won't even tell you the money he was making. It was crazy money, but he knew that, and he wanted this, and he and Doug have done an incredible job, and thank you, Chris, very much. And Doug Collins, where's Doug Collins? Doug Collins, what a great guy he's been. What a great guy. At the VA right now, you have a 92% approval rating. That's not bad. Let's see if you can get it up a little bit. Who are the 8%, right? But he's working on it. He is working on it. He's incredible. What a job. Thank you, Doug. What a great job you're doing. Appreciate it. As well as EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin. Where's Lee? This guy. People don't know, he was a great lawyer, like top of the line, and then he became a congressman in a race that he had no chance to win. He won, and was a congressman like for 6 years or something, and was highly respected. And then he took a shot at running for governor of New York, even though people said it was almost impossible to even think about, and he almost won. He came so close, almost won. And I appointed him as the environmental czar. She's our environment czar. And what a job, secretary on the cabinet. He's got everything. And the job he's been doing is incredible because we have $16 trillion so far invested in our country. We've never had anything even close. And this is just really in the last 4 months, not 6 months. That's when we started accepting things and getting things going and getting them rock and rolling. And Lee is getting the permits for people so fast. You know, the biggest problem they had is we can't build if you're not going to give us the permits, or if it's going to take 9 years to get a permit and then get rejected. You know, they'd wait 9, 10, 12 years to do environmental impact statements, and at the end of 12 years, they'd get a rejection, 3-2. You know, they gave their lives to it. We don't do that anymore. He does it within weeks, and we really appreciate Lee. He's got an incredible staff, and we appreciate the job he's done. He's an unbelievable guy. OMB Director Russ Fort. Nobody knows the finances of this country and the waste, fraud, and abuse better than Russell. So, Russell, I want to thank you for doing such a great job. You're really in there fighting, and really was a big help during this whole situation that we had, Tom, right, with Russ, when we had to know the numbers. There's nobody that knows him better. He lives with him. Director of National Intelligence. Oh, where's Tulsi? She's like hotter than everybody. She's the hottest one in the room right now because she found out with certainty. I think we knew it before, in all fairness, Tulsi. but now you have certainty. She has all the documents. She has everything that you need. And she found out that Barack Hussein Obama led a group of people and they cheated in the elections, and they cheated without question. It's not even a question. Would you say there's even a little question there, Tulsi? She says no. And you found things that nobody thought we'd ever find. And very happy and very honored to have you with us. She's right now, by far, Speaker. She's hotter than you right now, Speaker. She's the hottest person in the room right now, Speaker. So, Tulsi, great job. And I know you have a lot more coming. She told me you've seen nothing yet. So I heard those rumors about you, but now I know they're true. So we're very proud of you, Tulsi. They cheated so badly, and ultimately it led to a loss in 2020. And it shouldn't have been a loss. It was a big victory. We won by a lot. We had to do it again. But if I thought we lost, I would never have run again. And this is a far more consequential election than it would have been if we did. That's the only thing I can say in favor of it. But we can't ever let that happen again to our country. Look at what happened in terms of inflation, in terms of so many things. But most importantly, maybe in terms of allowing millions and millions of people into our country that we shouldn't have. We shouldn't have these people in our country, and the levels of violence and things that we're seeing are so bad, and we're getting them out. And Tom Homan and Christie have done an incredible job, and but we're getting them out. But this should have never happened. It was like just a terrible, unforced error. The only thing that I can't figure out, I always like to figure the other side. Why would they do this? Why would they allow people to come into our country from all over the world, not just South America, but from Venezuela, but from all over the world they came, and they came by hundreds of thousands, in some cases hundreds of thousands a day. When you look at some of these, they break down gates. We built hundreds of miles of wall. They didn't break down the wall, but anything that wasn't a wall, they were able to break it down. And they came in, though, by the millions, and we're going to be paying a price for this, so we are paying a price. It's all-consuming. And we have to get 11,888 murderers, many of them murdered more than one person. And they're in here, and some are already gone. We've gotten them out. Some we can't get out. We want to put them in jails because we're afraid they'll come back. They're so violent. And they used to say, no, these are the illegal immigrants, they said, are very kind people. Remember that? They used to say they're kind, they don't commit crimes. No, they make our criminals look like extremely nice people. And we have to get them out, and it's a big job, but we're doing it, and step by step. And last month, as you know, in June, we had 0 people come through the border, right? 0 people come through the border. So we're doing a real job. But what we found out is so horrible, that Obama and a group of thugs cheated on the elections. They cheated violently, viciously on the elections. They're violent people. They're vicious, horrible. These are vicious, horrible people. And we can't let this happen. SBA Administrator Kelly Loeffler, a cabinet member, and a great person. Hi, Kelly. And she has done a job. You know, I always say small business. I used to say it with somebody else that happened to be, Linda, you happened to be there. I said, it's small business, but it's actually the biggest business there is, right? Probably there is. When you add it up, all those little small loans, you add them up, it's the biggest bank there is. But Kelly, you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you very much. Don't do a better job than Linda. That would be terrible. Linda had the job before you. She was so great. But don't beat her, because Linda would be very upset about that. Actually, she'd be happy. I think you'd be happy about it, right, Linda? That's the way Linda is. I want to also express our gratitude to all of the wonderful friends, and mostly spouses, but the wonderful friends that we have here. This is sort of just a great period of time for the country, and it's a great period of time for the Republican Party. I also want to wish Congresswoman, a truly beautiful woman, Mary Miller, and her husband, her handsome husband. This is like I'd like to use them on the front page of an advertisement for people that come to a hotel or something, but they're like I think they're a perfect couple. Mary Miller, I'd like to thank you and wish you a lot with your husband, Chris, and a very happy 45th wedding anniversary. Wow. It's a beautiful couple. with beautiful children and grandchildren. Good. Keep it going. Keep it going. Mary's very respected too, Chris. You know that. She's doing a fantastic job. Beautiful woman. And happy birthday to Representative Robert Adderholt. Where's Robert? Robert? Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary, Robert. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. So we have an anniversary, we have a birthday today. Anybody else having a birthday or anything? Robert, great job you're doing. Thank you very much. We appreciate it very much. Time and time again, the House Republican majority has defied the odds to deliver win after win for the American people. They were giving us very small odds of doing this bill. In fact, we were originally breaking it up into 7, and then 6, and then about 3 and 2, and then ultimately we said 1, and I had it a little different name. I had one great, big, beautiful bill, but Steve said that's too much. That's a little too much. Let's take the word great out. But it is great. It was a little tougher to say, a little too long, but we took the word great out. But it is really one incredible situation that we passed. And people said that we'll do a number of bills and it'll be much easier. Typically, that's the way, except the problem was you had some where for the good of the country you had to do certain things, but it wouldn't necessarily mean you were going to get the votes. But you needed it for the good of the country. But the big, beautiful bill, the beauty is that it had something in it and a lot for everyone, including the people in this room that had a vote. So I think it was an incredible decision that we made pretty early on, right? We had a lot of people that were skeptical, Mike, about doing the 1. They said it's just not possible to get it passed. And I think it actually turned out to be the biggest advantage because everybody had something in it. No matter who you were, you could go back and say, look what we got. Oh, well, that's okay. So it really worked out well. You passed the Lake and Riley Act. You passed the Halt Fentanyl Act. That's big stuff. You know, we are tariffing countries that are sending us fentanyl and working with fentanyl. And sadly, we're taking in billions and billions of dollars, but we don't want to take in billions for that. We want them to stop, and they will. With the help of our great First Lady, you passed the Take It Down Act. That's a big thing, and it was a bipartisan. That was very bipartisan. I think I'll ask her to get involved in more acts. It was like a real bipartisan, not where you had 2, but you had a lot of Democrats vote for that one. That's a beautiful thing, the horrible things that take place on the internet, and they destroy children, and children do bad things to themselves, including, you know what, the word is suicide, and it really broke her heart to see it so often, so much. And Take It Down, we take it off the internet. They do things that are so bad. And it was a great thing that you did, bipartisan. On July 3rd, you passed the One Big Beautiful Bill, and that's going to go down, I think, as one of the most monumental achievements ever in congressional history. In one historic package, we delivered the largest tax cut in American history, the largest spending cut in American history, and the largest border security investment in American history. And we got no tax on tips. Think of it, no tax on Social Security. We have no tax on overtime. It's just been, there's never been anything like it. And when you explain it, you know, because the Democrats are out there saying, death. That's all they're given you know, the word manufactured. They manufactured. The word they use is death. That's the only thing they're good at. That's the only thing. So they have death. And when we get out and sell, it's the opposite. It gives us life. It gives the country life. It gives, you could look at Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. It gives it life. It means it's going to be here. They're going to be here. They wouldn't be here. I don't think we'd have a country. You want to know the truth? If we didn't win this election, I don't think we'd even have a country. But we've achieved more in 6 months than the most administrations have achieved during their 4 years or even 8 years. We've achieved more in 6 months than most administrations have achieved, whether it's 4 years or 8 years, which is pretty incredible. And when I was in Saudi Arabia, we took back $5.1 trillion. We went to Qatar, we went to Saudi Arabia, and UAE. Great leaders, all three, and great. They were great. And they invested, when I say took it back, I mean took it back in terms of an investment in the country, $5.1 trillion with a T, trillion dollars. And the King of Saudi Arabia looked at me, he says, you know what? 1 year ago, America was dead. Your country was dead. He said, and now you have the hottest country anywhere in the world. That's a big statement, and that was 2 months ago. But he said, you went from a dead country, which is pretty hard to hear that, but it's true. I mean, think of it. We had a dead country. We had an embarrassment. All over the world, they were laughing at us like we were a bunch of fools. We had a dead country. Now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. There's no country even close to being as hot. And those great representatives of Japan that a few of you, including the speaker, got to see in action, smart and sharp. And they said the same thing. They said, look, you have the hottest country in the world. So since I took office, the NASDAQ and the S&P 500, and they just did it again today, have set more than a dozen record highs. Core inflation is way down, below 2%. Think of that. And gas prices are the lowest they've been in many, many years. You know, it's interesting. I watch the Democrats, and they get on these shows. Well, prices are up. Energy is up. Gasoline is through the roof. Food and groceries are up. They lie. One guy even said eggs are up, and we reduced it by about 5 times. Think of it. Eggs, because when I first got here, the first week, they hit me. The fake news back there, they hit me. First week, they're screaming at me, eggs are through the roof. What are you going to do? I said, this isn't my problem. This was, Biden did this, not Trump. But they were screaming at me. I said, just give me a chance. And I will say our Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke, did a great job. Brooke Rollins, she did a great job. She's here too. Thank you, Brooke. But think of what we've done. So prices are all down. I don't think there's any price other than we have a real terrible head of the Fed. And if he brought down interest, you know, in Europe, the European Union, they've lowered their interest rate now 11 times, and we haven't lowered ours at all. He's a stiff. He's a knucklehead. And I was very nice to him at the beginning because I know how to sell. And, you know, at a certain point, it didn't matter anymore because the guy is just not a smart person. Shouldn't have been there. And I blame myself in a way for that, but I blame Biden for extending. I was surprised that they extended him, but they did. I think they extended him because they knew how much I couldn't stand him. So they did it for that reason. But and he did lower the rate before the election 2 or 3 times. It's the only time he's really acted like that. But no, he's a bad job. And he's hurting people. He's hurting people that can't get houses because they don't have mortgages. And I don't know if he knows it or not. He's either evil or stupid, and either is really not acceptable. But he's not doing a good job. And but he's only going to be there for a short while. Not going to be there much longer. Our deregulation efforts are saving the typical family thousands and thousands of dollars. So remember, when you're campaigning, got to remember this. Prices are down, groceries are down, oil is down, energy is down, gasoline is, wow. We hit $1.99 a gallon today in 5 different states. You know, in California, he keeps adding taxes, you know, when you go to $7, $8, but I mean, they just keep putting taxes on gasoline. It's crazy. I think you ought to take a look at that, Doug. It's ridiculous what he's doing out there. And he's really hurting people a lot. But we have, in free market, we have gasoline that's getting down to the low 2s, and in some cases even breaking that. I think you're going to end up breaking it if Doug does his job with Chris. You're going to be drill, baby, drill, right, Doug? That's Doug. He really took that theme to heart. He's going wild, actually. And we'll fill up the strategic reserves. You know, they use these are massive cavities in Earth that you wouldn't believe how big, and they took the oil out that we put in. We put in a lot at good prices, and they took it out before the election. And it didn't really amount to that much for cars. You know, it didn't last that long, actually, because that's as big as those cavities. We call them cavities, are caves. They're incredible salt. They're salt mines, and they have almost an unlimited capacity, but it is limited. And they were just about filled up to the top. And for the election, they started emptying it. It wasn't meant for that. It really meant for a military emergency. It wasn't meant to keep prices down so that somebody can win an election, but obviously that didn't work. And the blue-collar workers have already seen their largest real wage increase in 60 years, another thing you can say. But the biggest thing you can say, and I told Mike today, I said, Mike, there's one thing where I don't believe we can lose. So at the end of my first term, I was so proud of myself because I worked very hard, and pharmaceuticals, drug prices, went down for the first time in 28 years. Think of that. First time in 28 years they went down. You know what they went down? 1/4 of 1 point. Little much. The line was almost straight. It was like key, but it went down. First time in many years. 28, I think. And I was so proud I called a news conference to announce that drug prices have gone down for the first time in many years. And I thought it was great, but then I did something much better. And this is what you have to run on. I have a friend who has a serious weight problem. Serious. He's brilliant, but extremely heavy. I'm being nice. And he takes Ozempic, or as they call it, the fat drug. And he's a brilliant guy. He's rich, tough, highly neurotic. He's a mess. He's a total mess. But he is brilliant and rich. And he was in London, and he calls me like, President. He always used to call me Donnie. Now he calls me President. That's good. I like that better. He goes, President, what's going on? I just bought the Ozempic for $88. And in New York, I pay $1,300. Same factory, same company that makes it, same everything. $88 to $1,300. He said almost $1,300. And I explained to him that that's the way it's been for many, many years, where people actually go to Europe in order to buy drugs. When they come back, they'll load it up. In fact, sometimes they get arrested for having so much they think they're drug addicts. They just buy months of supply because it's sometimes 1/10, 1/8, 1/5, 1/2. It's a tremendous difference. And this is for the people in this room, because this is something that nobody else can do. We're going to get the drug prices down, not 30 or 40%, which would be great, not 50 or 60. No, we're going to get them down 1,000%, 600%, 500%, 1,500%, numbers that are not even thought to be achievable, because I've used a certain talent that I have and convinced the drug companies that you have no choice. The drug companies were selling drugs, same company, in Europe and other places, based on what Europe told them to sell them at. And they said, let America pick up the difference, and I wouldn't let it happen. I wouldn't let it happen. So I invoked what's called a favored nations provision, so that we will pay the same price as the lowest nation anywhere in the world. And drugs will come down, like from, as an example, $1,300 in the case I gave you. They'll come down from $1,300. Now, in the world, they'll go up a little bit. Not as much as you think, because the world is bigger than the United States in terms of population, as you probably know. But it will go up. And maybe it'll go up, instead of $88 or $90, it will go up to $110 or $120 or $140. But we're going to come down to $140. So you're going to have it coming down from $1,300 to $140, $150, $160. What difference? I mean, somewhere big. And it'll be, serious. It'll be numbers that nobody can even imagine. That's going to have a huge impact on Medicaid, Medicare, even Social Security. It's going to have a huge impact on everything. So I just want you to know that that's one of the things that you have, and they'll never be able to take it away from you. When I said no tax on tips, Kamala got just killed. We won Nevada by a lot. They have 99.9% of the people work in hotels, right? I said no tax on tips. And a month later, she said, and there will be no tax on tips. And they got booed out of the room because they knew that was our issue. So they'll try and pick up on this issue. They can't, because we did it, but they'll try anyway, because they do lie terribly. We will have reduced drug prices by 1,000%, by 1,100, 1,200, 1,300, 1,400, 700, 600, not 30 or 40 or 50%, but numbers the likes of which you've never even dreamed of before. And we're working very hard right now to get the other countries to lift up their prices a little bit, and to get the drug companies to put it to them And if they don't, the drug companies will have a lot of problems, and they are mostly agreed to it. And if the countries don't, then as an example, if it's Europe, I'll say, that's okay. You're no longer allowed to sell cars in America. You're no longer allowed to have Mercedes, BMW, Volkswagen, or any of the other many cars. And they will say, oh, I love the idea of lower drug prices for America. So you have to use that. You have to use that because it's, I mean, I can't think of anything that could be more powerful than that, okay? And there's nothing more powerful than that. And we can't forget about it. I said, one thing I said to the speaker today, I said, the one thing I'm going to bring up tonight, because we have so many of the congressmen and women in the room, but the one thing I'm going to bring up is what we did with, we call it favored nations, but so we're going to have the lowest drug prices anywhere in the world. We'll be tied for the lowest drug price, essentially, anywhere in the world. And you can win your election. I don't care where you come from. That helps everybody. There's no other point, I think, that can, what do you think, Mary? Do you agree? Okay. I agree, too, Mary. You better agree, Mary, if you didn't agree. If you didn't agree. But no, it's an amazing thing. And nobody thought that was even possible. So we've negotiated historic trade deals with the United Kingdom, Indonesia, China, today Japan and the Philippines. We just did the Philippines today also. A good deal. We have stopped wars between India and Pakistan, the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda. That was going on for 30 years. And by the way, India-Pakistan was probably going to end up in a nuclear war if they kept, you know, they shot down 5 planes in the last attack. And it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I called them and I said, listen, no more trade. If you do this, you're not going to be good. But they're both powerful nuclear nations. And that would have happened. And who knows where that would have ended up. And I stopped it. Iran, you saw, we took out their entire capability of nuclear. Kosovo and Serbia, we stopped that. And a couple of others that we didn't stop a war, but we stopped what probably could have ended up in a war. And we do that on the House. It's compliments of America, okay? Do you think Biden would do that? I don't think so. Do you think he ever heard of any of those countries? I don't think so. I was sitting there screaming back and forth with Japan, and somebody said, can you imagine Biden doing this? I don't think so. There would be no negotiation. We'd just be ripped off like we have been. We've been ripped off so many years by friend and foe. And you know what? The friend has been worse in many cases than the foe, but ripped off on trade and other things. And I'm very proud to tell you that with NATO, the European, if you look, the European countries essentially will be buying our equipment, paying 100% on the dollar, and then they're going to distribute it to where they're going to distribute it, which is going to be to Ukraine or whatever. But they're buying it, so we're not going to have the expense of giving away. Biden gave away $350 billion worth of equipment, or cash. Worse than equipment, cash. So we want to find out about that someday, I guess, right? But they were supposed to buy their own equipment, but I have a feeling they didn't spend every dollar on the equipment. But they are brave. Look, they're fighting a hard fight, and we're no longer going to do that. Our great companies, we make the best military equipment in the world, and our great companies are going to be selling now, and they'll be using it. So even those people that don't want to be in the war, and I'm one of them, but even those people are saying, wow, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So they'll be able to defend themselves, and we will no longer be paying for it. And I think that's a very big thing. So we've achieved incredible things in a very short period of time. And in polling released just last week, it was announced that the approval for congressional Democrats under Hakeem Jeffries has reached the lowest ever recorded, 19%. And Republicans are doing well. And I have the best numbers I've ever had. You know, it's amazing. I watch people on television. Well, what about Donald Trump's polling numbers? Yeah, they're the best numbers I've ever had. And with this made-up hoax that they're talking about, my numbers have gone up 4 and 5 points. They want to do anything to get us off the subject of making America great again. And we're not going to put up with it. And remember, don't let them forget, it's so important, Obama cheated on the election. Look, the camera just went off. Obama, the red light just went off. Can you believe these people, how bad they are? Obama cheated. When they give you all the nonsense, Obama cheated and his people cheated, but he was there. You ever hear this? They talk about, if they ever even mention it, they never mention his name. Just the opposite with me. But they only mention my name. They don't mention any of you guys. They don't mention Tom. They don't mention Steve. They don't mention our great speaker. They mention Trump all the time. I'd like to have them mention you. But remember this, Obama cheated on the election. And we have it cold, hard, blue, and it's getting even more so because the stuff that's coming in is not even believable. So, and you should mention that every time they give you a question that's not appropriate. Just say, oh, by the way, Obama cheated on the election. You'll watch the camera turn off instantly. But I want to thank all of you again, once again. This is an incredible job. It's incredible people, really incredible people. And, you know, it's very interesting. I got to know so many of you over the last 6 months, really. But so many of you, some I didn't know. But you have tremendous talent. And you have some I spoke to too much. And I particularly like the ones I didn't have to speak to at all, Mary. I didn't have to call Mary. But in particular, but I like them all. Look, in the end, we got there. We got the vote of almost all. A couple of people that will never vote, no matter what. You know, they think it's so cool not to vote. They have no suggestions. They have no ideas. They have no nothing. They just want to vote no. I don't know why. They're not doing very well on the polls right now, by the way, I'll tell you right now. But I want to just, if I could for a second, because he really deserves it, is truly a spectacular person, spectacular man. I'd like to ask the Speaker, Mike Johnson, to come up and say a few words.
Mr. President, I'm not going to speak long. These guys hear me talk all the time, okay? I just want to say that we have been making history together, and we're making history because you are the visionary, bold, strong leader that America needed. The American people recognize that. They gave us a mandate, and we're delivering on it. The exciting thing about the big, beautiful bill is America First is no longer just an agenda. It is now the law of the land, my friends. I could go by and name person by person, and I should name their spouses as well. All the members in this room, everybody deserves the credit. They underestimated us all the time, every day, because our margin is so small. But we do not accept that as our fate. We work together. This was prayer and patience and preparation and teamwork that got it done. We began this about a year and a half before that bill was delivered. The deliberate work down in the trenches. I could name the chairman of all of our committees, 11 committees of jurisdiction that worked on the big, beautiful bill. All the members in here who contributed their ideas, their thoughts, their expertise. They gave their heart and soul to it, Mr. President, because they wanted to deliver for you and deliver for the people, and we did it together. And I'm telling you, this is landmark stuff. There's not anything bigger I think we may ever work on, ever, in this legislative arena, because it may not even be possible, but we did it. And I'm so grateful and I'm so thankful and humbled to work with this group. Mr. President, they are committed to the country as you are. You are the strong leader, the example for us. With your stamina, we know we can never sleep, okay? We've got much more to do to deliver for the people, and we're going to do it. We thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the celebration. Everybody here deserves it. God bless.
All right, that was the OG, the 45th, now the 47th President of the United States, President Trump. All right, you guys want to keep going? Let's do this guy right here. This happened yesterday with the leader of Philippines.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's a great honor to have President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. of the Philippines, a great family legacy. and highly respected in this country. I know that because I have many friends in the Philippines, and there's great respect, or I couldn't say it, so congratulations. We're going to be talking about trade. We're going to be talking about war and peace. They're a very important nation militarily, and we've had some great drills lately. We're back with them. I think I can say that the last administration was not getting along with them too well. They didn't get along with anybody. They didn't know. Honestly, they didn't know what they were doing. But we have some fantastic military relationships with the Philippines, and that's been reinstituted. And Pete, I would say that you couldn't be happier, right, with the relationship.
Great partners.
So I just want to say it's an honor to have you. We're going to talk about trade today, and we're very close to finishing a trade deal, big trade deal actually. And we do a lot of business with you. It's a lot of income coming in for both groups. But I was surprised to see the kind of numbers. They're very big, and they're going to get bigger under what we're doing and what we're proposing. And I just want to thank you for being with us. It's a great honor. You and your representative. It's really a great honor. We have a big announcement. AstraZeneca, the big drug company, is going to spend $50 billion, just announced $50 billion in the United States in order to build various places all over the country, big manufacturing plants, pharmaceutical plants all over the country. So that's an honor. And he said they did that because of the election and because of the fact that the tariffs are placed. So they're building their facilities in New York. $50 billion, that's a big investment. And it's going to be a very good investment. I have no doubt about it. So thank you to AstraZeneca. And with that, I'd like to have you say a few words, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Of course, we're all very happy to be here to once again reaffirm the very strong ties between the Philippines and the United States, ties that go back over 100 years. And considering the context in which we live these days, especially in my part of the world, this has evolved into as important a relationship as is possible to have. We must remember that the United States is our only treaty partner in the Philippines, and that has stood us in good stead over the years, certainly through the Second World War, and the cultural memory of all Filipinos, down to even the school children, is that our strongest, closest, most reliable ally has always been the United States. That is something that we value, that we are grateful for, and that we will continue to foster as we go on. With the leadership of President Trump, I am very confident that we will be able to achieve that. I think it is worthwhile to remember that it was President Trump who, in his first term, characterized the relationship between the Philippines and the United States as ironclad. And that has been necessarily the case since that time that you made that statement, sir. And it is something that the Philippines will always hold close to its heart. Thank you once again, and we are honored, and it is our great pleasure to be here and to visit with the President of the United States. Thank you, sir.
It's my great honor. Any questions?
Mr. President.
Yeah, please go ahead. Go ahead.
Mr. President, do you think that Chair Jerome Powell should resign?
I think he's doing a bad job, but he's going to be out pretty soon anyway. In eight months, he'll be out. But I call him too late. He's too late all the time. He should have lowered interest rates many times. Europe lowered their rate 10 times. We lowered ours none. And it's causing a problem for people that want to buy a home. Look, our economy is so strong now, we're blowing through everything. We're setting records. You know that, you see that. And whether it's the Philippines or anyone else, we're setting records at levels that nobody's ever seen before. But you know what? People aren't able to buy a house because this guy is a numbskull. He keeps the rates too high, and probably doing it for political reasons. The only time I remember him cutting rates, he cut the rates just before the election to try and help Kamala or whoever he was trying to help. He probably didn't know. And he's building a building. He's $2.7 billion. They have a $900 million overrun. What is that? And that was given by Biden. That was another Biden deal. And this guy's building this building that's severely overrun. And what does he need the building for? Why does he need space for more people? So they did a big study the other day, and they called all of the great intellects and the great economists and all of the great everything. And it was 71, and only 2 got it right. Me and another gentleman that happens to be very smart. 69 people got it wrong, and the Fed got it wrong, more wrong than anybody. And he has these think tanks, and they build buildings for people that think. And it's really not thinking. It's a little bit of combination of thinking, but it's something you sort of have or you don't have. They don't. The job he's done is just terrible. He ought to raise interest rates. We should be at 1%. We should be leading the world. Instead, we're paying 4%. And if you look at what that means, that's over $1 trillion in interest that we have to pay. That with the striking of a pen, we would be saving more than $1 trillion. Is that right, Scott?
Yes,
Do you have
sir.
anything to say about it?
Yes, sir. I called yesterday and this morning for the Fed to do a big internal investigation to understand not their monetary policy, but everything else. The Fed has had big mission creep, and that's where a lot of the spending's going. That's why they're building these new or refurbishing these buildings. And I think they got to stay in their lane. And I think that based on the way they cut rates last fall, they should be cutting rates now.
It's inconceivable, I know the Fed very well, that they can be spending $2.7 billion to build a building. They don't do anything. It's the greatest job. You show up one day, a half a day, you make a little speech, the economy's doing well, the economy's not doing well, we're going to raise interest. And he's got it wrong. That's why I call him too late, T-O-O, too late. And it's really too bad. But it is affecting people that want to buy houses, and that shouldn't happen.
And Mr. President,
And he should lower them. Those rates should be 3 points lower. That's what they should be, 3 points lower, maybe more than that.
Mr. President, I would like to ask both of you
Yes.
one question. Mr. President Marcos, next year, Philippines is going to be the rotating chair of ASEAN. I wonder how do you plan to balance your relationship between the United States and China? And for President Trump, Kremlin yesterday said if you are going to Beijing in September, they wouldn't rule out a meeting between you and President Putin. Is such a meeting possible? And how soon do you plan to visit China?
Well, we have a lot of meetings possible. President Xi has invited me to China, and we'll probably be doing that in the not too distant future. A little bit out, but not too distant. And I've been invited by a lot of people, and we'll make those decisions pretty soon. Please.
Well, as you say, we are chairing ASEAN for 2026. There is no need, in a sense, to balance, as you characterize as, to balance our relationship within the United States and China, simply because our foreign policy is an independent one, and we are essentially concerned with the defense of our territory and the exercise of our sovereign rights. Now, whether we do this not alone, we need to do this with our partners. And again, our strongest partner has always been the United States. But of course, we are trying to form coalitions and multilateral relations so that those like-minded nations who share the same values as we do, who hew to international law, most specifically the UNCLOS, present that position very clearly to anyone who has intentions of unilaterally changing the world order, and that is how we are guided in that.
And I don't mind if he gets along with China, because we're getting along with China very well. We have a very good relationship. In fact, the magnets, which is a little complex piece of material, but the magnets are coming out, very well. They're sending them in record numbers. We're getting along with China very well, and I don't mind if the president dealt with China. If that's meant, because I think he has to do what's right for his country. I've always said, make the Philippines great again. Do whatever you need to do, but you're dealing with China wouldn't bother me at all.
No, well, now it is something that we have to do in any case.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Mr. President, do you support the Justice Department seeking a new interview with Ghislaine Maxwell, and did you urge the Attorney General to seek one?
I don't know anything about it. They're going to what? Meet her?
They're going to. Your Deputy Attorney General is reached out to Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney asking for a new interview.
Yeah, I don't know about it, but I think it's something that sounds appropriate to do. Yeah.
Do you have any concern that your Deputy Attorney General, who's your former attorney, would be conducting the interview, given your past relationship?
He's a very talented person. He's very smart. I didn't know that they were going to do it. I don't really follow that too much. It's sort of a witch hunt, just a continuation of the witch hunt. The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up to 2020 in the election. They tried to rig the election, and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that. You know, when we caught Hillary Clinton, I said, you know what? Let's not go too far here. It's the ex-wife of a president, and I thought it was sort of terrible. And I let her off the hook, and I'm very happy I did. But it's time to start, after what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Obama's been caught directly. So people say, oh, you know, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. They sent everything to be highly classified. Well, the highly classified's been released. And what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level. So that's really the things you should be talking about. I know nothing about the other, but I think it's appropriate that they do go.
May I ask you about that, Mr. President? Tulsi Gabbard has submitted a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. From your perspective, who should the DOJ target as part of their investigation? What specific figures in the Obama administration?
Well, based on what I read, and I read pretty much what you read, it would be President Obama. He started it. And Biden was there with him, and Comey was there, and Clapper, the whole group was there. Brennan, they were all there in a room. Right here, this was the room. This is much more beautiful than it was then, but that's okay. I have nice pictures up that came out of the vaults. They were in there for 100 years. This is much more beautiful. We have the Declaration of Independence now in the room, which wasn't here. I guess people didn't feel too good about putting it here, but I do. But you know what? If you look at those papers, they have them stone cold, and it was President Obama. It wasn't lots of people all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one they... Look, he's guilty. It's not a question... You know, I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries. You've seen some pretty rough countries. This man has seen some pretty rough countries, but you've never seen anything like it. And we have all of the documents. And from what Tulsi told me, she's got thousands of additional documents coming. So President Obama, it was his concept, his idea, but he also got it from crooked Hillary Clinton. Crooked is a $3 bill. Hillary Clinton and her group, the Democrats, spent $12 million to Christopher Steele to write up a report that was a total fake report. Took 2 years to figure that out, but it came out that it was a total fake report. It was made up fiction. And they used that. Now, the one thing they weren't able to do was and probably the only thing I respect about the press in years is the press refused to write it before the election. They refused to put it in. The Steele report was a disaster. All lies, all fabrication, all admitted, and admitted fraud. She paid $12 million, and the Democrats,
for that report to a wise guy named Christopher Steele. He wrote a phony report, and they wanted to get that report in before the election. And I'll tell you what, I talk about all the time, the fake news, how bad it is. But in this case, they wouldn't do it. They saw it, they read it, and they said, we don't believe it. And it was only after, substantially, like a month and a half after the election, that it got printed, and it was a big wisp. It was just like a bang of nothing, because the election had ended. If that report had gotten published by the New York Times or somebody, and I respect the Times for maybe only this, because they're crooked as you can be. They're a terrible paper, a crooked, corrupt paper. But for this one moment, they said, this is bullshit, we can't put this in. And neither could any other paper. Wall Street Journal's a lousy paper, very, very dishonest paper. As you see, I'm suing them for a lot of money because they do things very badly. It's got a nice name, but it's really, in my opinion, it's a terrible paper. And it can be corrupt. But just so you know, they didn't take the Steele report. It was the Dossier. Remember the famous Dossier? I called it the fake news dossier. The news wouldn't publish it. And I'm amazed. They had 2.5 months. It was finished. 2.5 months. That was supposed to be what was going to happen. And it got published a couple of months after the election. And frankly, nobody cared too much about it. But that was a big thing. No, we caught Hillary Clinton. We caught Barack Hussein Obama. They're the ones, and then you have many, many people under them. Susan Rice, they're all there. The names are all there. And I guess they figured they're going to put this in classified information and nobody will ever see it again, but it doesn't work that way. And it's the most unbelievable thing I think I've ever read. So you ought to take a look at that and stop talking about nonsense, because this is big stuff. Never has a thing like this happened in the history of our country. And by the way, it morphed into the 2020 race. And the 2020 race was rigged, and it was a rigged election. And because it was rigged, we have millions of people in our country. We had inflation. We solved the inflation problem. But millions and millions of people came into our country because of that. And people that shouldn't have been, people from gangs and from jails and from mental institutions, people that we don't want in our country, people that we're getting out, dangerous people. 11,888 murderers, many of them, 50%, more than 50%, murdered more than one person. I hate to say this with such a distinguished guest, but you know, they asked me a question. I got to answer the question. No, Barack Hussein Obama is the ringleader. Hillary Clinton was right there with him, and so was Sleepy Joe Biden, and so were the rest of them. Comey, Clapper, the whole group. And they tried to rig an election, and they got caught. And then they did rig the election in 2020. And then because I knew I won that election by a lot, I did it a third time, and I won in a landslide. Every swing state won the popular vote. But I won that all the same way in 2020. And look at the damage that was caused.
How crucial is the ammunition hub, and how crucial is the ammunition hub that the U.S. plans to build in Subic and the Luzon corridor, considering that these will be built in areas that hosts strategic ports as well as military air bases?
You're talking ammunition?
Yes, the U.S. House Congressional Committee on Appropriations approved a budget.
What's very important. Otherwise, we wouldn't have approved it.
Sorry?
Yeah, it's very important. Otherwise, we wouldn't. We need ammunition. We're going to end up in a few months, we'll have more ammunition than any country has ever had. We're going to have more missiles than any country has ever had. We're going to have all the speedy missiles. We'll have the speedy ones, the slow ones, the accurate ones, the ones that are slightly less accurate. We have everything. But we will have more ammunition than any country has ever had. It's very important to me.
And how
Go ahead, please, Red.
Sir, when you say that you're close to making a trade deal, what gaps remain? And for President Marcos, sir, I was just wondering, do you not think that perhaps the Philippines hosting U.S. missile systems could be considered escalatory by China, especially because they can strike deep into mainland China? Thank you.
Well, it's an honor to be with this gentleman. You know, I've known him, and I've known his family, actually, but I've known him. And I assume you're from the Philippines? Are you from the Philippines?
Yes, sir.
It's good. You're very lucky to be from the Philippines. Right? It's a great place. But we're going to have a very good relationship. I mean, I know you had some problems with another president, and it was not your fault. It was the president's fault, and the country was maybe tilting toward China, but we untilted it very, very quickly. But you know, you had a country that was tilting toward China for a period of time, and I just don't think that would have been good for you. You can deal with China, you should deal with China, but when I got elected, everything changed, and they came right back to us.
President Trump.
Say it again. Yeah, Brian, go ahead.
Oh, Mr. President, I just wanted to piggyback off the
Sorry, I have a question to President Marcos.
I'll let you
Yes. I'm sorry, what was the question again?
It was about whether having U.S. missiles hosted in the Philippines could be considered escalatory by China.
All of the what we consider part of the modernization of the Philippine military is really as a response to the circumstances that surround the situation around the South China Sea, and now what we used to refer to as Asia Pacific, which we have expanded now to the Indo-Pacific. And if we would certainly, like in any kind of military spending, we would wish that it wasn't necessary, but it is. And so that is what we are doing. And as an adjunct to the question about the ammunition production, this is actually the United States is assisting the Philippines in what we call our self-reliance defense program, which is to allow us to be self-reliant and to be able to stand our own 2 feet, whatever the circumstances that occur in the future. And that the reason that we have encouraged more interaction with the United States is because it is necessary. And it is not just with the United States. It is with all our neighboring countries, and even countries as far afield as the Scandinavian countries, the EU. And so this is an ongoing process. And again, I will stress the point that we do this because we feel it is necessary.
Don't forget, just as tantamount to what you're asking, the Philippines were loaded up with ISIS and a lot of terrorists, and they were at a very, very dangerous point. And during my administration, we went in and we wiped them out, working with the Philippines, but we wiped them out. But if we didn't go in, I don't know what would have happened. I don't know who would be your president right now. But we spent a lot of time and a lot of talent on going into the Philippines and wiping out terrorists. They had a tremendous problem during my administration, and we cleaned it up. We got them out, and now you really have a good, solid country again.
I believe so. Yes.
Mr. President, I wanted to follow up on the housing question.
Yeah.
We got no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. How important is it we have no tax on home sales, capital gains, to unleash the housing market in this country?
Well, we're thinking about that, but would also unleash it just by lowering the interest rates. If the Fed would lower the rates, we wouldn't even have to do that. But we are thinking about no tax on capital gains on houses. And very impressed that you asked that question, because nobody knew that.
Well,
how did you find that out? That's very.
I wonder why there's somebody I'm very close to.
There's a leaker. There's a leaker.
I've also got a question. I find it a very interesting world that we know more about two people at a Coldplay concert just hours after that viral video than we know of Thomas Crooks 1 year after attempting to assassinate you. What is holding back the investigation on Thomas Crooks?
Well, they've reported to me and they've told me things, and they really say they haven't found anything that was abnormal. I would say this: the Secret Service was very brave, because they were right there and they jumped on me. They made a mistake. They should have had somebody on that roof, and they should have had communication with the local police, who also, they did a very good job, but they made some mistakes, and we have a whole different group of people now. I don't think anything can happen, but I think we have the best people anywhere in the world right now, and I think they've learned. And they went into him very, in great detail. They gave me the whole thing, and what can I do? They say that it was just a nut job that was looking to do this, and I spoke with the FBI, the new FBI. I spoke to the FBI, who was the old FBI. I wouldn't have believed a thing they said, because the old FBI under Comey was crooked as hell. He was one of the most crooked. Everybody should read the Horowitz report. Unfortunately, Bill Barr didn't use it. But the Horowitz report, not appointed by me, it was a report on Comey and the FBI. It is one of the worst shots at a human being I think I've ever seen. In fact, the New York Times did an editorial that was one of the worst editorials I've ever seen about anybody. That was about Comey. You ought to go back and get, and Barr didn't use it because he didn't have the guts to use it, or something happened, I don't know. Too bad. He went to Mr. Durham. Instead of doing the Durham, all they had to use is the Horowitz report. And I always felt badly for Horowitz, frankly, because he's a Democrat, I guess. He was appointed by a Democrat. But that report has gotten lost, and it shouldn't be lost. You should all go back. It should be mandatory reading. Go back and read the Horowitz report on Comey and his cronies. And you'll see exactly. We're going to add that to all the stuff that we found. It just confirms it. But what we found is even more so. Now, we found absolute, this isn't like evidence, this is like proof, irrefutable proof, that Obama was seditious, that Obama was trying to lead a coup, and it was with Hillary Clinton, with all these other people, but Obama headed it up. And, you know, I get a kick when I hear everyone talks about people I never even heard of. It was this one. No, it was Obama. He headed it up. And it says so right in the papers. Got everything. Got everything. This is the biggest scandal in the history of our country. And it really goes on to even the autopen, because it all relates to the same thing. It all started, the same sick minds. You have an autopen, which is a tremendous, well, we don't have a president, we have an autopen that signs everything. I'll bet you sign everything. You don't have autopens. Everybody, who doesn't sign? You're the president of a country. But it's all that whole thing, leading right up to the end of it is the autopen. And the autopen was used by people, and Biden knew nothing about it. Biden knew nothing about it. They were signing documents that he knew nothing about. As an example, they released the Unselect Committee of Liability. The Unselect Committee spent 2 years grilling everybody, and then they destroyed all the evidence. You know why? Because the evidence made them guilty. And he gave them all a pardon. The Cheney, all the scum that was on the Unselect Committee, Cryan, Adam, Kinzinger, and Democrats. And he gave them a pardon. Do you have something else, guys?
I was going to add one more thing on Adam Schiff. Director Pulte reports that Adam Schiff claims he lived in a one-bedroom apartment. Now, how does a family of four, and you're a developer, very successful developer, how does a family of four live in a one-bedroom apartment?
No, it looks like Adam Schiff really did a bad thing. They have him. Now, let's see what happens. It's not up to me. It's not up to, I stay out of it purposely. But it's mortgage loan fraud. It's a big deal. He defrauded banks and insurance companies and the federal government. But it's very simple. It's mortgage loan fraud. And you're right. It's a lot of people to live in a one-bedroom apartment, right? But he put it down. But he has a lot of other things far worse than that. So, no, Adam Schiff, they have him 100% on mortgage fraud. Now, if there's anybody else in this room except you would have no problem. But anybody else in this room, you'd have a problem. I'd have a problem. Yeah, please.
So there was a hearing yesterday in the Harvard case. Would you allow Harvard to get their federal dollars back as a part of any agreement with the administration?
No, I'm not giving. Harvard's been given $7 billion. Can you believe it? By the Fed, $7 billion, and we want money to go to all universities, not Harvard. Harvard got more than anybody else. They have $52 billion. They get huge tax incentives and tax breaks on that $52 billion. But they have $52 billion, and they got $7 billion over a short period of time. And we have a very hostile judge appointed by Barack Hussein Obama. A very, very hostile judge who knows exactly right from wrong, but you know we expect to win it on appeal. She hasn't given a decision yet, but she's very hostile, and she was put by Barack Hussein Obama, and generally speaking, anybody that does that, we're gonna have problems with. So we don't expect to have. We won the case yesterday. Anybody that was there, that was a neutral, would say we easily won the case. But a lot of the case, and a big part of it's going to be how much money Harvard gets in the future. That's not part of the case, and they're not going to get very much.
Mr. President, where are we in terms of negotiating about the reciprocal tariff? How far are we?
With who?
With the Philippines. Yes, sir. How far
Are you from the Philippines?
Yes, sir. I'm from the Philippines. How far are we from achieving
Well,
free
it's tough.
trade?
He's a very tough negotiator. So far, we're not there because he's negotiating too tough. In fact, I used to like him better than I do now. He's too tough. But we'll probably agree to something. But he's strong, a strong negotiator. He loves your country.
Mr. President,
When are you calling
No,
the
no,
Philippines?
please.
You talked a lot about the severe consequences that those who are involved in the Russia hoax must face. In your view, sir, what are the next steps now that these documents are out there in Tulsi Gabbard?
Well, the Justice Department would have to act. And we have a very competent, very good, very loyal to our country person in Pam Bondi, very respected. And it's going to be her decision.
Okay, just a follow-up to that, sir. Christy Nome is in New York City visiting an off-duty CBP officer who was allegedly shot this weekend by an illegal alien who came into the country during the previous administration.
Right.
What is your message to any local leaders who continue to push sanctuary city policies after this nearly tragic incident?
So the only thing I don't understand, because you like to understand things and we're all smart people and all, but why would they allow 21 million people into our country, unvetted, unchecked? You don't allow it. You wouldn't allow people in. He's tough. No, the country's run properly. Biden and his group of thugs, and I don't think it was Biden, I think it was the people that surrounded that beautiful Resolute desk right behind you. They allowed 21 million people, probably much more than that, and many of them came from jails and gangs and drug dealers and mental institutions, insane asylums. Many of them are very sick. 21 million, probably 25 million, probably even more than that. And we're getting them out. Many were murderers, as I said. They killed people. Many killed more than one person. Stone cold murders. I don't understand why they would have allowed that. There's only two reasons. The vote. Is there one voters? It's one reason. I don't think they would have done it for that because they cheat. You know, they're so good at cheating, they don't need that. But the vote, and the second reason is they hate our country. I think they hate our country. I actually do. And it's the biggest problem. I mean, much of our time is spent with, you know, we have the strongest border anywhere in the world now. Maybe even stronger than your border, if you can believe it. We have no people came in last month, zero, which is pretty amazing. I'm not even sure I can believe that. But liberals are the ones that do that calculation. So, but we had no people come in. A year ago, we had hundreds of thousands of people come in. Hundreds of thousands of people. And they flowed in. And if it wasn't for the election, it would have been millions of people came in last year. So millions of people prior to election time, they allowed millions and millions of people to come into our, I mean, you saw it. They'd open the gates. If you took an Alabama-LSU football game that holds 128,000 people, I was there, 128,000 people, and I liked them and they liked me. But if you took that and doubled it, that's what used to flow into our country on a daily basis. It's not even believable. And we're getting them out, and we're starting with the worst ones. And we had a man shot yesterday, a police officer who's a great gentleman, shot right here in the throat. Probably won't be able to speak again. But he was brave, and he shot the other guy, and they ended up getting him. And you saw the scene where his friend took him to a hospital and dumped him down on the sidewalk. The whole thing was crazy. But why would anybody do to our country what these Democrats have done? And honestly, we can never forget it. We can never forget it. What they have done, the damage that they've done to America is very, very sad. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. Yes. We saw a couple of videos today. It has been 3 hours and 8 minutes. All right, I got to take my beautiful, gorgeous daughter to dinner. So you guys have a wonderful time. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams. And believe in Almighty God. We will be back here probably around 10, 11. I mean, who knows? But we're going to have a good time. Ladies and gentlemen, God is the greatest. Thank God for America. If you're here in the United States, love your country, support your country, and love your neighbors. Okay, love your neighbors. It's not about your parties. Okay, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, doesn't matter. What matters is you are American, and it is country before parties. All right. With that being said, God bless you. Be nice. All right. Be nice. Go outside, shake hands, meet people, introduce yourself. Also, shout out to law enforcement officers, shout out to veterans, shout out to the military members. You guys protect the homeland. God bless you. Of course, shout out to first responders. Ice Baby, God bless you. Everybody in the chat, God bless you. Shout out to our esteemed members, Dr. Luke, the GOAT, Ellie, Ingram, Sandra, Ringmaster. God bless you guys. Shout out to our moderators, Terry Vinings, God bless you. Shout out to Jet, MVP Jet, God bless you. Mr. Busky, Zyros Garden, everybody, God bless you. Shout out to Chili Billy, God bless you, Chili Billy. Johnny 5, God bless you. AEG says Genesis year or whatever. I mean, who knows what people talk about? God is the greatest, okay? Be safe out there. All right, love you guys. See you soon.